Be cool, be kind, be classy. The cupcakes so sweet and sexy. Have fun and enjoy the journey. Just have a good attorney. No big whoop, no biggie. She lives near New York City. And not just a YouTube show. When you know, you better grab a straw. Learn about the law. It's cool here in the shade, sipping motions of lemonade. Cool heads will prevail, kindness will never fail. Be classy and vastly wise. Oh, Melanie Little is going live. Oh no, where is Melanie? Follow the island's melody. There's a concert within reach. No surprise, she's at Jones Beach. She heard some music far away. Captain Jack Stack Harbor Bay. He sings and his piano plays. Not all sounds are waterways. Speaking Yiddish or Latin, it's not just for Manhattan. It's for Goethe and Machegas. Ridiculous that insanus. Oy vey, Marcus. Proset, that's for schmucks. Be cool, be kind, be classy. My cupcakes are sweet and sassy. And not just a YouTube show. When you know. Cool heads will prevail. Kindness will never fail. Be classy and vastly wise. Melanie Little is going live.
Good morning. Good morning. Happy Monday, everyone. Happy Monday. I feel like I haven't seen you in so long, but I think it was just, I don't know, when was our last show? Thursday, maybe. It was a long weekend, 4th of July here in the US, and it was beautiful weather. And today it's raining again, and it's going to rain all week. And I've been kind of paralyzed this weekend because Camp Mystic. I was when I first heard about the news of the flooding in Texas and the girls at the camp, I've been paralyzed ever since. I've been wanting to come to the microphone and do a show ever since I heard the news. I spent my summers at an all-girls Catholic sleepaway camp on a lake in New Hampshire from the time I was 10 until the time I was 16. It's a family tradition. It also was a family-run camp, and I can't even talk about it because I woke up this morning and now they're saying there's 27 girls lost as in they found bodies and counselors. And I went on as I kept going online to look for information because I was so heartbroken about it. My camp friends reached out to me. Some of my camp friends are my best friends still to this day in the world, and said, if this ever happened, I never would have let your hand go. And then I read about 2 little girls who were found together and they were best friends. The whole thing is so devastating. Just pray. If anybody knows, I have a big platform. If anybody knows how I can help, please email me. And I didn't know what I could do. So I just didn't. And it felt ugly. It felt gross putting little girls' pictures up on the screen that were missing. And I couldn't do that. So I just didn't know what to do. But if anybody there is boots on the ground and knows how we can help, there is a huge community of women who are campers from all girls camps, worldwide. And we had campers from Ireland and Scotland and just the whole thing. I can't even talk about it because it upsets me so much. The camp director died trying to save 5 girls, and he did save 5 girls. And it is just heartbreaking. Just pray. There've been some miracle rescues of girls that were found clinging to trees, but then other information says that those are fake stories. So I don't even know what's real and what's not at this point. Just pray. I'm so upset about it. So when I get upset about something, I don't come to the microphone. When I get angry about something, that's when I come to the microphone. Sometimes something will make me really angry and I'll have to come and vent about it with you. And so we're going to try and pivot right now to Brian Walshe. And then at 2 p.m., we have Turtle Boy's hearing in Norfolk Superior Court. And as far as I know, right now, it's only Zoom. If anybody knows whether any of the networks are going to be streaming it, please reach out and let me know so that I can get some decent coverage, because we've tried to do it on Zoom before and it's not always great. And sometimes we try and do it and it's audio only, and that isn't great either. So let's see how we go on the Aidan Carney hearing. And I think there's a lot of people going to the courthouse to support Aidan Carney today because he deserves it. He deserves it. He's fighting for our constitutional rights, your constitutional rights in Massachusetts, especially your First Amendment rights, and the weaponization of your witness intimidation statute that is only selectively prosecuted. And he's facing over 100 years in prison, by the way, for the things that they say that he allegedly did. I have an entire playlist on Aidan Carney's case. We've been over much of the pleadings, many of the hearings, most of the hearings, at least since Betterow became involved, and they've been broadcasting his hearings more. But now that we have freed Karen Reed, it is time to free Turtle Boy, because there is no journalistic privilege in Massachusetts, among many other issues that you seem to have there. That is just one of them, as is the weaponization of certain statutes. And you're going to see from what we look at today with regard to Brian Walshe, that Brian Walshe was also, the first thing that they held him on was that witness intimidation statute, which they extended to his lying to the police about his whereabouts on one or two or a couple of the first interviews that Brian Walshe did with the Cohasset police and the MSP. Hang on one second. It is not his actual trial that's starting today, Kim. It is his, it's a conference, but I hear they have some things to say, the attorneys. And so we will be there to cover it. So what we've been doing with Brian Walshe, and we've been sort of dipping our toe into the water of Brian Walshe, because I wanted to let you know about the constitutional issues first before I let you know the bulk of the horrific evidence that they really do have against Brian Walshe. The question remains, though, did they get it legally? So what I want to do is I want to go back to his first court appearance. That was in Quincy District Court. And then his arraignment after he was indicted by the grand jury, which was in front of Judge Cannone, by the way. And that was in April of 2023. And remember, as we go through this, all of the other things that were going on during these time periods in the Karen Reed case. Eventually, Judge Cannone was removed from the Brian Walshe case and the Harry Turk case. We covered the Harry Turk trial. That is over. And Brian Walshe's case was transferred to Judge Freniere in November of 2024. It's interesting to me that Proctor was involved in the Karen Reed case, in the Brian Walshe case, in the Turk case, and many other cases that we probably don't even know about. And why were those 3 cases assigned to Judge Cannone? You can decide. You can decide, because when we watched the evidentiary hearing and we watched Bukhenik testify in front of Judge Freniere, his demeanor was a far cry from the way we saw him testify in Karen Reed's trial in Judge Cannone's courtroom, wasn't it? I have questions. And the more I dig into this case, the more questions that I have. Is this a mistake? Is it corruption? Is Karen Reed the best thing to ever happen to Norfolk County, because now all of these players are going to be exposed for things that they may or may not have been doing for decades unchecked? As I was going over some of the old streams that I did on Brian Walshe, and Olivia, I don't know if you're here today or if you watch this on replay, or I'll talk to Olivia later. Tully was involved in some potential misdeeds in the trial of Emmanuel Lopes. Emmanuel Lopes is the man who killed Michael Chesna, who's a police officer. That was a case tried. It was fried in front of Judge Cannone. Tried in front of Judge Cannone. The first trial was a mistrial, and then he was convicted at the second trial. But when I was going over the papers on Brian Walshe during one of the first streams I did on this case, the defendant brought out some information about Tully having maybe mishandled some evidence in the investigation of the death of Michael Chesna, the police officer. So This is not the first time. And until the swamp is cleaned out, it may not be the last time. So here's where we stand with Brian Walshe. I have extensive show notes below this video. If you're not familiar with the case, you can close out the chat and you can see the extensive show notes underneath. But as a basic summary overview, Ana Walshe, a 39-year-old mother of 3, at the time her children were 2, 4, and 6, was last seen in the early morning hours of January 1st of 2023 at her home in Cohasset with her husband, Brian Walshe. I think Brian was 47 at the time. Ana and Brian had a friend over for dinner on New Year's Eve. He left around 1 a.m. I think it was a former coworker of Ana's, and he said they were happy, in good spirits, and he left. Ana was reported missing to Cohasset police on January 4th of 2023 by a coworker, I think head of security at Tishman Spire in Washington, D.C., where she worked. She was commuting back and forth to D.C. She had an apartment there as well, from D.C. to their home that they rented in Cohasset. That's another interesting thing that we need to talk about, the rental of that home. Because the lease to the house that the lease to the house that they rented in Cohasset was leased to Brian's mom, Diana Walshe. I don't know about Bukhenik being given a desk job in a dark corner, but a lot of people are putting that in the chat. So I can't confirm because I'm just not sure. Hang on one sec. So Ana Walshe is reported missing to Cohasset PD on January 4th of 2023. Brian Walshe called her job and said, has anybody heard from her? And he'd been trying to reach her, he claims, because he says that she left between 6 and 7 a.m. on the 1st, that when they went to go to bed in the early morning hours after their, dinner party with the coworker, she told Brian that she had to leave early in the morning because there was a work emergency and she had to go back to DC. He says that he didn't call right away to report her missing because she had not come home on Christmas Day. She didn't come home on Christmas Day until very, very late. She had said that her flight was canceled, but she got home late at night on Christmas Day, which we all thought was odd since she had 3 young children, that she wouldn't be there to see them open their Christmas presents. And the same thing had happened on Thanksgiving where she showed up late. It turns out later, police find out she had been having an affair and she went to Dublin for Thanksgiving with this man she was having an affair with. And that's why she was not around for Thanksgiving. It also came out after that Brian Walshe's mother had hired a private investigator to follow her around DC because Diana Walshe thought that Ana might be cheating on him. So there's a lot to this case. Is this another Adelson case? I don't know. So Ana Walshe is reported missing to Cohasset police on the 4th of January. They come to Brian's house. They interview him several times. At the time, he's on house arrest for federal charges for selling, you can't even make this up, fake Andy Warhol paintings on eBay to a collector of Andy Warhol paintings for something like $80,000. And then apparently when this guy got the paintings, he noticed they didn't have the seal that they were supposed to have. He was brought up on federal charges and he was on house arrest with an ankle monitor. However, the feds say that the ankle monitor did not track his whereabouts. It only tracked the time that he left and came back to his house. And he had a certain dispensation to leave his house during certain times of the work week, let's say to drive the kids to and from school. And for other reasons, he could leave the house. So there's that. Cohasset PD come, they talk to him. There's conversations on the 4th, 5th, and 6th of January. On the 6th of January, an agreement is brokered between Lynn Beland. You might remember that name from the Karen Reed case. She was the right hand of Michael Marcy at the time in ADA in the county. An agreement is brokered between Lynn Beland and Tracy Miner, who is an attorney for Brian Walshe, who handles mostly white collar crime. And you're going to see when we look at the arraignments, perhaps he should have looked for a different lawyer. An agreement was brokered between the two in writing that Brian Walshe would consent to a search of his phone and his son's iPad. His son was 6 years old, for communications only. That's the only thing that was agreed to in the email exchange between Lynn Beland and Tracy Miner. Lynn Beland wrote Tracy an email. Tracy responded. Lynn responded. And it was regarding communications. Okay, put a pin in that. That can work. Communications can be text messages, Facebook Messenger messages, I guess Snapchat messages, WhatsApp. These people were using something called Viber, which I had never heard of, similar to WhatsApp or Signal. On January 6th, Brian Walshe gives Fanning his phone and the son's iPad pursuant to this agreement. Fanning also takes with him another iPad that he claims that Brian Walshe just handed him. And despite the terms of the agreement about what they were allowed to search for, they did a total extraction of Brian Walshe's cell phone, a total extraction of the iPad belonging to the 6-year-old, and an extraction of the iPad with the cracked screen, we'll call it, because that's what they call it. Now he does have one of the best defense attorneys in Massachusetts. His name is Larry Tipton. We watched him try the Penny McGee trial, and Penny McGee was acquitted by Judge Cannone in a bench trial. If you have not watched that trial, I have a playlist for Penny McGee. Please go watch it. Larry Tipton is one of the best defense attorneys in Massachusetts. He's up there with Kevin Reddington. He's a public defender for Brian Walshe in this case, because at some point, Brian Walshe, despite the fact that his mother is apparently very wealthy, was declared indigent, and now he's entitled to a public defender. And Larry Tipton is the man. In fact, after the Penny McGee trial, I asked him to come on the show to talk to you guys, because you guys had a lot of questions for him because he's amazing. And he said, I'm not comfortable. He's like, unless I'm in a courtroom, I'm just not comfortable. And I totally get it. I totally get it. Although I would love to talk to him. And I talked to him offline, but he didn't want to come on the show. So here's where we're at. Brian Walshe is still sitting in the Norfolk County Pokey on charges of first-degree murder and lying to investigators and disinterring a body, meaning he took portions of her body and distributed them around town in dumpsters, allegedly, on video. The trial is set for October 20th. It's in front of a new judge, like I said, Judge Freniere. And there's a motion to suppress happening right now. We went over all the papers, and I think our last two streams. And the defense, via Larry Tipton, is moving to suppress the searches of the devices because law enforcement went outside the scope of the consent agreement. And because they did that, they found all of those horrific Google searches that we talked about. And I can't apparently put them up on the screen because YouTube demonetized me, and it's all a thing, but whatever. I don't care about the demonetization. I care about the shadow banning, because this is the case that people in Massachusetts need to hear about. This is a case that people across the country need to hear about. And I have a worldwide audience, so you all need to talk. You all need to know about this. Because Guarino testified during the hearing, we watched the suppression hearing. It was Guarino, Fanning, Bukhenik. They all testified, as did Connor Keefe. You remember him also from the Karen Reed trial. And two officers from Cohasset PD, Harrison Schmidt, and I can't remember the other one right now. Because they did a full extraction of Brian Walshe's cell phone, they got all of these really horrific Google searches that they say were made on the child's iPad in the early morning hours of January 1st. And there was a Google search that he made on December 27th, best state, or that he allegedly made, that the iPad allegedly made, best state for a man to divorce. The defense is saying Walshe had lots of money. His mother is really wealthy. He didn't need her money. Why would he be searching about divorce? The horrific Google searches were so ridiculous that he must be the dumbest criminal on the face of the planet. And you know what they are. Maybe I think they're going to repeat some of them in the hearings that we're going to watch. But then because they also didn't just get the search history from the devices outside the scope of the consent agreement, in my opinion, they also got his location data from his cell phone and the data that pointed to when he unlocked his phone, when he used a password on his phone. And of course, in this case, they're saying Celebrite is 100% accurate. But in Karen Reed's case, of course, Celebrite had to change their software because of Jennifer McCabe's alleged 227 search, right? And I've been screaming this since the beginning when we've been covering Karen Reed, that they're going to have a real problem in Brian Walshe because all of a sudden they want everyone to believe these Google searches were made at the time that it appears that they were made according to the Celebrite extractions. That's a whole other issue. But in addition to the search history, they also got his location data. And because they got his location data, they found out that he was lying about his whereabouts on January 1st and maybe 2nd and maybe 3rd. There was no evidence of him deleting his searches that I can see. Oh, you would like my Cash App name? Thank you very much. I'll put it up there in the corner for you. You're so nice. Thank you, Fearless Query 21. There you go. Thanks for asking. Because they got his location data, they were able to track him, and they were able to go to certain stores like Home Depot and Home Goods and get him on video buying things and stuff that may have had to do with cleaning up a crime scene and or wrapping up a body. And they had him going to certain areas of town where there were dumpsters, and then they looked in the dumpsters and they found some things, and we're going to talk about that. But the question is, if they got all of that information illegally and outside the scope of the consent agreement, should it be suppressed under the Fourth Amendment? And that is a big problem, because if Judge Freniere follows the case law and follows the Constitution, all of that stuff may be dismissed. And if you live in Massachusetts or may be suppressed, you should be outraged, because all the MSP had to do was get an actual search warrant to search the phone properly. But it seems that they don't think that the rules apply to them. And we've seen that in other cases. We see that in Aidens Carney's case. Also important to note is that Brian Walshe's devices were seized by consent. Consent, and I use the term loosely because Yuri Bukhenik said, I didn't have him sign a consent form because, they had already had an agreement by email. And the agreement was for a total extraction. And boy, did he stand by it. Ana has never been found. Fanning on the stand said, no, I didn't have him sign a consent. Oh, I knew I was only supposed to go there and get his one cell phone and the iPad. But, I took the other one too because he just gave it to me. Because they don't think the rules apply to them. And they didn't think anybody was ever going to find out, because Karen Reed's case exposed all of these players for maybe what they've been doing for a very, very, very long time. First thing we're going to do, let's take a look at the, we're going to take a look at the original, the first time he was brought into court, which was in January 2023. If I can just use or find out where I put it, because 700 tabs open. So based on the information that Fanning, Bukhenik, Proctor, Guarino found in Brian Walshe's phone, he was arrested on January 8th for lying to police. By the way, he also consented to let them search his house and his pool and his car. Keep in mind, they didn't get a warrant to search his phone until January 9th. They're claiming, oh, we would have found all this stuff anyway. But I ask you, would they have? Would the probable cause that they set forth in the affidavit, which we looked at the other day, have been enough? Because Michael Proctor put in his probable cause affidavit all of the Google searches that were obtained illegally as probable cause to search his house and to put tracking devices on his cars and to search his phone. And they already had all of the information. Also, pay attention to Brian Walshe and the way he looks, because the glow up in the Norfolk County Pokey is real. Aside from the haircuts that they get there, because Harry Turk looked like he had his hair cut by a hammer. And in this first appearance, this says it was posted on January 18th of 2023. And it may be. It may be that he was arrested on January 8th and then he didn't appear in Quincy District Court until January 18th. But let's take a look, because this is so much worse than I originally let you know. Because I wanted you to focus on the constitutional issues rather than what they found. We're going to Quincy. Hammer haircut time. Here we go.
That we want to bring you live into the courthouse right now in Quincy, where Brian Walshe, there he is there live on your screen, has just been brought in to face the judge for these new murder charges. Let's listen.
Okay, look at how different he looks. And if you know what he looks like now, and you're going to see what he looks like in the next appearance, corrupt and lazy police work. We don't need a warrant. We just do what we want. I mean, the volume's a little bit low to me. Tell me how it is for you. I might have to reduce my own volume so you can turn yours up, or I'll just move away from the mic a little bit. All right, here we go. This is January of 2023. This is the Brian Walshe court appearance. Let me put a banner up so people that come in don't get confused. All right. A minute. Talk amongst yourselves for a minute. All right, here we go. This is Brian Walshe's first court appearance, January 18th, 2023, Quincy District Court.
On the first day of January 2023, with assault and to beat Ana Walshe with intent to murder that person. You're also charged with returning the body hid without lawful authority, did willfully dig up or remove human remains. Not guilty, pleas to the end.
Do you understand those charges, Mr. Walshe? I do. I'm here from the Commonwealth.
Yes, thank you, Your Honor. We're not contesting bail or probable cause, so we would ask that he be released.
Thank you, Ms. Miner, but I
Okay.
have to satisfy myself.
Okay, on the left is Tracy Miner. She's the one who just got up and spoke. And on the right, closer to your screen, this is Lynn Beland. Remember Lynn Beland from the Karen Reed case, who was frantically writing those letters back and forth to the feds about what they knew and what they were investigating in conjunction with Michael Morrissey with regard to the federal investigation into the investigation of the death of John O'Keefe. That's Lynn Beland. She has since retired. She retired, I think, around the same time, around November, October, November of last year, around the same time that the Walshe case was taken away from Judge Cannone and reassigned to Judge Freniere. That was the same time that Karen Reed's case was specifically assigned to Judge Cannone for the retrial. And I think, I have to look it up, but I think that Judge Freniere also might be assigned to Karen Reed's civil case, which would be very odd to me because here in New York, we elect our judges. Judges are appointed in Massachusetts. We have judges that sit in criminal court and we have judges that sit in civil court, and never the twain shall meet. There aren't judges who hear all kinds of cases. There are judges for family court who hear only family court cases. There are juvenile judges, there are civil judges, and there are criminal judges. So I don't know. All right, here we go.
So we would ask that he be released.
Thank you, Ms. Miner, but I have to satisfy myself with probable cause. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Honor. Lynn Beland for the Commonwealth. The defendant is now before the court charged with murder of his wife, Ana Walshe, as well as disinterring of a body. Ana was 39 years old and mother of 3 children, 2, 4, and 6. Ana worked in Washington, D.C., splitting her time weekdays between D.C. during the week and staying in her house in Cohasset, where she lived with the defendant and their 3 kids. On January 4th of 2023, Cohasset police received a call from her Washington, D.C. employee indicating that she was missing. She was due to report to work on January 4th, but did not appear. She had a flight on January 3rd from Logan to D.C., which she did not board. Cohasset police went to their house at Chief Justice Cushing Highway for a well-being check. It was only at this time, when they met with the defendant, that he first reported his wife missing. Defendant stated his wife left the house at approximately 6 a.m. on January 4th.
Okay, but that's not entirely accurate because he did call Tishman Spire, who then called Cohasset PD. So watch the media spin on this from the beginning, because I also found an article that said investigators say that they have ring camera of the area because a neighbor across the street has a ring camera. Sound familiar? Same playbook?
First, New Year's Day. He stated she took an Uber or a Lyft to go to the airport, that she was returning to DC for work. Records were checked and there were no Uber or Lyfts to that house on January 1st. Defendant said he had not spoken to his wife since the early morning hours on New Year's Day. Cohasset police were granted permission to bing on his phone to locate her or her phone. And his phone indicated that it was stationary in the area of the Cohasset house on New Year's Eve until 3:14 a.m. on January 2nd. There were no outgoing calls made at that time, and at 3:14 a.m. on the 2nd, it was turned off. Defendant stated Ana should have been wearing a dress, a black jacket, hunter boots, watch, ring, as well as carrying a Prada purse. Defendant gave a timeline of 6 or 6:10 a.m. on the 1st when he last saw her. What I'd like to do now is just describe his actions in the days from January 1st. Defendant indicated on January 1st.
But remember, his actions were found because of the illegal search of his phone. That's how they got his location data. All they had to do was get a warrant. It's not that hard. They've got people on speed dial for warrants. They didn't get a warrant to search inside of the house at 34 Fairview when there was a dead body found on the lawn.
At 3 p.m., he did some errands and went to his mother's house in Swampscott, but got lost because he didn't have his phone. He said he knew it was lost when he saw the pirate ship on Route 1. Defendant stayed 15 minutes, then went to Whole Foods and CVS. Surveillance was checked, and he did not enter either of those stores. On January 1st, defendant Googled using his son's iPad. Some of his searches are as follows. Keep in mind that the defendant said he left at 6 a.m. At 4:55 a.m. on January 1st, he searched how long before a body starts to smell. At 4:58 a.m., how to stop a body from decomposing. At 5:20 a.m., he searched how to embalm a body. At 5:47 a.m., 10 ways to dispose of a dead body if you really need to. At 6:25 a.m.
If you really need to. 10 ways to dispose of a body if you really need to. Here's an overview of the house if you're not looking at your screen. This is their house in Cohasset.
On the 1st, how long for someone to be missing to inherit? At 6:34 a.m. on the 1st, can you throw away body parts? At 9:29 a.m., what does formaldehyde do? At 9:34 a.m. on 1st, how long does DNA last?
Again, all of these searches were obtained illegally. Haas Long, right? Haas Long feels familiar, doesn't it?
At 9:59 a.m., can identification be made on partial remains? At 11:34 a.m., dismemberment and the best ways to dispose of a body. At 11:44, how to clean blood from wooden floor. At 11:56 on the 1st, luminol to detect blood. At 1:08, what happens when you put body parts in ammonia? At 1:21 p.m., is it better to throw crime scene clothes away or wash them? Those were on the January 1st. There was also information gained from the defendant's phone, which showed on January 2nd, he was at home Goods in Norwell, where he purchased 3 wives.
Home Goods in Norwell. How did they get that information? Oh, from the illegal location data that they got from his phone.
There were also more Google searches on January 2nd. At 12:45 p.m., hacksaw best tool to dismember. At 1:10 p.m., can you be charged?
Hacksaw, best tool for the job? Question mark. Guess what they find in one of the dumpsters? Hacksaw. Spoiler alert. How did they get to the dumpsters? The illegal location data search. Wow. Who was in charge? Who failed to get a warrant? Proctor, Bukhenik, Fanning. Guarino did the extraction, and Connor Keefe.
With murder without a body. At 1:14 p.m., can you identify a body with broken teeth? On January 2nd, following those, the defendant was seen on surveillance at the Home Depot in Rockland. In checking the surveillance, the defendant is observed on a security camera pushing a cart. Items included cleaning products, mops, brushes, tape, towel, a Tyvek suit with boot covers, buckets, goggles, baking soda, a hatchet. He had a face mask and rubber gloves on at the time he was pushing the cart in Home Depot.
How did they get to the Home Depot in Rockland, you ask? The illegal location data that they got from his cell phone. Go figure. They know how to investigate a crime. They go and look for video, but they don't know how to get a warrant, how to abide by the consent given for the search of his phone. If this monster walks because these guys screwed up the investigation, I have no words. I have no words.
At 5:32, he was seen at the Derby Street in Hingham, now removing the gloves and the mask. Data from his phone also tracked his whereabouts on January 3rd. Locations were traveled at 4:27 on January 3rd to an apartment complex in Abington. Surveillance shows the defendant's Volvo, as well as a male fitting the defendant's appearance, exit a car near the dumpster. He walks to the dumpster carrying a garbage bag. He's leaning, and it appears to be heavy as he has to heft it to the dumpster. He walks to the dumpster with the garbage bag and leaves it. On 4:48, he hit another complex in Abington, and at 5:10 p.m., cell phone shows records at another apartment in Brockton. Video shows a party consistent with his appearance and his Volvo. Again, he discarded items in the dumpster. On January 3rd, that same day.
People are saying, yeah, I think it all does point to him. It does. It does absolutely point to him. But how did they get all that information? You still have to go about obtaining evidence legally. Exigent circumstances, could they have gotten a warrant? Probably. Why did they choose not to? That's the question. And it's a big question. Is it a violation of the Fourth Amendment? It's going to be up to the judge to decide, because this is all fruit of the poisonous tree, in my opinion.
At 1:02 p.m., he did some more Google searches. What happens to hair on a dead body? At 1:13 p.m., what is the rate of decomposition of a body found in a plastic bag compared to on a surface in the woods? At 1:20 p.m., can baking soda, mask, or make a body smell good? On January 4th, the following day, the defendant went to Home Goods and TJ Maxx. He purchased towels, as well as bath mats and men's clothing. At 4:15 that day, on the 4th, he went to Lowe's, where he purchased squeegees and a trash can. On January 4th, when Cohasset...
Here's the thing also, and they've mentioned this in the papers and at the hearing, when he gave consent to search his Volvo, which they call a Vovo, They saw a receipt from Lowe's. So they could have used the receipt from Lowe's during that consent search of the vehicle to get his location data too. There's so many ways that they could have done this. They just didn't. Perry says, because the rules don't apply and judges like Bev cover from them. And that's what I said earlier is there a reason all these cases involving Proctor, Bukhenik, Fanning were all as such signed to Judge Cannone? And then this one got taken away and given to Judge Freniere, who sits in Middlesex, but she's coming to Norfolk to try this case. I don't know. I don't know why they've had some of the hearings in Middlesex. And the Karen Reed civil trial civil case is in Plymouth. And it looks like it's Judge O'Shea. So I'm not sure why people were saying that it was the same judges in this case, because that would be kind of frightening if judges are handling all kinds of cases. I don't know.
Police went to the house on the well-being check. Officer observed his Volvo with seats down and a plastic liner in the back of the car. The next day, a view of the Volvo showed his seats folded down, floor mats with some dirt, and the carpet appeared to show fresh vacuum streaks. When asked about the liner, the defendant said he threw it in the trash.
When asked about the liner, he said he threw it in the trash. And we watched the hearing, and Larry Tipton asked the officer who was on the stand, he pointed at the trash and said the liner was in there. Did you go get it? And the officer was like, no, I didn't. Huh.
Later analyzed the car, and there was present blood in the car. On January 5th, review of the data from defense.
Again, they analyzed the car. There's also a motion to suppress the warrant to search the car. They say they found blood in it.
And its phone showed his phone traveled at 8 a.m. first to his daycare and then to Swampscott, where his mother resides. The phone traveled to the complex where his mother lives at 9:30 a.m., went for about 5 minutes around the building to the southeast corner.
This is interesting too. Again, they got this location data illegally, in my opinion. And also, in this case, they were able to compare the day that he went to the dumpster in Swampscott at his mother's apartment complex with some data that they took from a month prior, where he actually went into his mother's apartment. And they say they can pinpoint that at one time he was at the dumpster, at the other time he was in the apartment building. But remember, in the John O'Keefe murder, they wanted us to believe that you couldn't tell whether John O'Keefe was in the house or on the lawn because, GPS isn't that accurate on a phone. Tully was involved in this case too. They just don't talk about him a lot, I believe.
In the southeast corner of that complex is where there was a dumpster. The dumpster was later secured and searched. On January 8th, police and crime scene services searched the house in Cohasset. They found blood in the basement, a knife with the presence of blood. The knife was damaged. A second knife was also found in that basement. In addition, there was heavy-duty large top plastic liners purchased from that Home Depot firm. As part of the investigation, police checked for activity on Ana's credit cards, banks, flights, trains. There was no activity since she was last seen on January 1st. Police also tried to track down what happened to the bags that the defendant was seen throwing in the dumpster earlier. This was over in Abington. These bags and what was in them were already picked up and taken to a location for shredding and to be incinerated. By the time police located that, they were already destroyed. However, investigators did secure and search the dumpsters from defendant's mother's complex in Swampscott. It was searched at a transfer station in Peabody. Investigators recovered 10 trash bags. Inside the trash bags, many of these items contained stains consistent with blood, in fact, a lot. Among the items secured were towels, rags, slippers, tape, Tyvek suit, gloves, cleaning agents, carpets, rugs, hunter boots, Carter purse, a COVID-19 vaccine card in the name of Ana Walshe, a hacksaw, a hatchet, and some cutting shears.
All of that was
The
found at the
person who
transfer
was
station.
described-
But again, how did they get there? Because they got the location data illegally. Remember when Karen Reed's phone was in possession of the MSP? And in April, I don't know, was it April of 2022? The location data from Karen's phone just disappeared while it was in the custody of the MSP. Isn't that wild?
As what Ana was last seen in. A portion of the rug was heavily stained with red-brown stains. The substance was consistent with also having baking soda on it. There was a portion of a necklace consistent with one that Ana had been seen wearing in photos.
It was a Gucci
The
necklace.
state crime lab performed testing on certain selected items that were recovered from those trash bags. There was human blood found on them, and then they were sent for DNA testing. The findings are as follows. On the slippers in the interior, Ana and Brian Walshe were contributors to the DNA on those slippers which had blood on them. On the exterior, Ana and Brian Walshe contributed to the DNA found on those slippers. The Tyvek suit. On the interior cuffs, Ana and Brian Walshe contributed to the DNA that was left on them. On the exterior left pant leg, Ana Walshe was contributed to the DNA. On the interior right sleeve, Ana Walshe was a contributor to the DNA that was found on the Tyvek suit. There was tissues which found that Ana Walshe contributed to the DNA. There was one other earlier Google search, which would be of note. On December 27th, defendant Googled, what's the best state to divorce for a man? Rather than divorce, it is believed that Brian Walshe dismembered Ana Walshe and discarded her body. The bags were later discarded in Swampscott and contained Ana's property and the items used to clean up, as well as the DNA that was left behind. The Commonwealth is asking the defendant be held without bail for the murder of his wife.
Thank you, Ms. Beebe. We heard it all.
No, Your Honor, thank you.
Right. The defendant will be held without bail, pending indictment. Do we ever take a probable cause, or just dealing with the reserve time for the grand jury?
Not at this time, but I will. Your Honor, we have a date of February 7th already for the Mercedes.
Okay, so held without bail, pending indictment. Now we're going to look at the indictment.
To visit web.
Okay, and this is only 3 months later. Look at the difference in his appearance. This is in front of Judge Cannone. Okay, thank you. Thanks, Team Brittany. We're trying to stay on topic, but since I have confirmation from Olivia, I will break the news. Because since Olivia posted it, I know that I can count on Olivia for having the correct information. It has been confirmed that Sergeant Yuri Bukhenik has been booted from the Norfolk County DA's office on Sunday to the Division of Field Services at the South Boston Barracks. This follows Detective Lieutenant Brian Tully's transfer out last November. State Police did not immediately explain the decision to transfer Bukhenik. Could it have anything to do with his testimony in the Brian Walshe hearing? I don't know. Thank you, Olivia. If you don't follow Olivia on Twitter, you should. Her name is on Twitter at Olivia Lambo. She's Olivia Nile in the chat here. But this was just updated this morning at 10:27. And he's been transferred out of the DA's office. Are you shocked? So here we go. This is, there he is. There's Brian Walshe. This is less than 3 months later. Well, 3 months, a little over 3 months later, in front of Judge Cannone. Just change the banner. Still represented by Tracy Miner, by the way. The ADA is Greg Connor. He's the same attorney that we saw handle the suppression hearing. See if they got any new information illegally. New evidence illegally. Here we go.
The law, chapter 265, section 1.
Is it bad that Clerk Jim's voice gives me PTSD? All right, I'll try and be quiet. Here we go.
Against the peace of said Commonwealth and contrary to the form of the statute, in such case made and provided, a true bill assigned by the foreman of the grand jury and assistant district attorney for the Norfolk District. To this indictment for first-degree murder, sir, how do you wish to plead, guilty or not guilty?
Not guilty.
Thank you. Counsel, does your client waive right to a full arraignment to these other two indictments?
Yes.
Thank you. One count of misleading a police officer and one count of conveying a human body. How do you wish to plead, sir, guilty or not guilty?
Not guilty.
Thank you. You can have a seat. Question of bail.
Thank you.
Mr. Connor?
Thank you, Your Honor. The Commonwealth would ask that the defendant be held without bail as a result of being charged with 265, Section 1. Your Honor, if I may go into the allegations the Commonwealth has against the defendant and then go into my argument. Thank you. Your Honor, on January 4th, that morning, the defendant, Brian Walshe, first reported to his wife's employer in Washington, D.C., that his wife, Ana Walshe, had been missing since January 1st at approximately 6 a.m. He had reported that she had told him that she was leaving town for work emergency and was flying out of Logan, and that she would.
Oh, yes, I forgot to tell you, Laura McLaughlin is on this case. And if you watched Turtle Boy's interview with Alan Jackson, which was amazing, by the way, on Saturday night, he brought up Laura McLaughlin. We'll talk about that later. We'll stay on topic for now.
Be returning back to Washington and was looking to find her at her employment. Commonwealth has established that this was a lie. By this time that he had killed her, dismembered her, and disposed of her body. In early of 2022, Ms. Walshe had obtained employment at Tishman Speyer in Washington, D.C. As a result of that, Tishman Speyer had asked her to move to D.C. and work out of Washington, D.C. It is a national property management company, Your Honor. Ms. Walshe and Mr. Walshe sold the family home that was in Cohasset and purchased a residence in Washington, D.C. Mr. Walshe was unable to leave the state at that time because he was on pretrial conditions at the federal district court. They rented another home on Chief Justice Cushing Highway in Cohasset, and Ms. Walshe would commute from the property that they owned in D.C., working in D.C. during the week and being with the family on the weekends. In December of 2022, it had become evident that Mr. Walshe was suspecting his wife of having an affair. He was routinely visiting the Instagram page of one of her male friends. And on December 26th, his mother, with his input and direction, obtained and hired a private investigator to surveil Ana Walshe in Washington, D.C. On December 27th, the oldest son's iPad was used to research best states to get divorced in and worst states to get divorced in. On December 28th,
I'm going to just turn off the captions for a second because YouTube hates these Google searches. So just if you can just listen, that would be great.
Ana Walshe had dinner with a friend in Washington, D.C. and became uncharacteristically upset and told her friend that she believed that Mr. Walshe was going to be incarcerated as a result of his federal case and that she was prepared to leave him and take the children to Washington, D.C. On December 30th, she flew home and was with the family and expected not to return until January 3rd and was going to spend the long weekend with the family. On the 31st, she attended an exercise class. She also got her nails done at a local salon and had made arrangements for a family friend, her former employer, to come over their home on Chief Justice Cushing Highway for a dinner to celebrate New Year's Eve. That family friend said he got there at approximately 8 p.m. and that the children were asleep and that Mr. Walshe cooked dinner for the three of them. At around 10 p.m., one of their children came downstairs, socialized with the adults, and went back upstairs approximately 20 minutes later. The family friend left at approximately 1:30 a.m. on January 1st, and that is the last time someone has seen Ana Walshe alive outside of the defendant and his family. What happens is later on in the early morning hours, at approximately 4:50 a.m., the oldest child's iPad begins to visit websites that concern how long does it take for a dead body to smell, how long does it take for someone to be missing to be declared dead.
And look, Tracy Miner is still representing him at this arraignment. She doesn't specialize in, felony murder cases, so I don't know why he didn't get someone who does. No shade to Tracy. Look, we all have our specialties.
It also visited websites and made numerous searches on this matter at 9:30 a.m. to 2 p.m. Included was also how long someone must go missing in order to collect, and there was a visit of a website for luxury watches.
Oh, luxury watches.
At 2 p.m. on January 1st, the children's babysitter arrived at the Cohasset home. This was previously arranged with Mr. Walshe. Mr. Walshe had told the babysitter that he and his wife initially were going to go out for a late brunch, New Year's Day brunch that day. But then he told the babysitter that Ana Walshe had returned to Washington, D.C. That morning at approximately 6 a.m. for a work emergency, and that he needed to visit his mother in Swampscott, and asked the babysitter to stay. He had also told the babysitter and the family friend that he had lost his phone, and he had told the family friend that he had felt somewhat free having lost his phone. Subsequent analysis of his phone determined that it was actually plugged in the morning of January 1st.
Yeah, that's some other analysis that wasn't supposed to be done under the terms of the consent. But, they just did it anyway. And then Guarino actually said after he found those incriminating Google searches, he stopped searching and sent an email to Tully or Fanning, remember? And then they started questioning Brian Walshe about the Google searches. And his attorney's like, okay, we're going to stop now because we didn't say you could look for Google searches in his devices. It was only communications. And then everything else stems from that, stems from the fruit of maybe the poisonous tree. All could have been resolved so easily, right? Right, so easily. Just get a warrant. No big whoop, no big. You got people on speed dial for that, right, guys? They do.
However, while his phone stayed at the house in Chief Justice Cushing Highway in Cohasset, the oldest child's cell phone did not. On January 1st, the oldest child's cell phone shows native location data that traveled to Shaw's Supermarket and Walgreens in Cohasset. At the time the phone is at those stores, the defendant is seen walking in on store surveillance videos by himself. It then travels later on that afternoon, approximately 5 to 5:30 p.m. to Vinin Liquors in Swampscott. Surveillance video shows the defendant's vehicle and the defendant arriving there by himself, bypassing the store, going to a dumpster in the parking lot of the store, disposing of items, then returning to his car. After it goes to Vinin Liquors, it goes across the street to an apartment complex where the defendant's mother resides. The native location from the oldest child's cell phone shows that it is by the dumpster for that apartment complex. It then travels to Lowe's in Danvers. At that time, where the phone is showing that it's...
So there's a lot of questions about what could get thrown out and what could not. During the search, the consent search of the Vovo, as they call it, the child's cell phone was noted to be in the cup holder. Because Brian said he had lost his phone, so maybe he used his son's phone. I don't know. They also say that they saw in plain view a receipt for Lowe's. So this may be the only stuff that is not dismissed. So pay close attention to what they found from the child's cell phone, because that was not something that was something that was collected with the proper search warrant, and Lowe's, because that could conceivably be argued. We saw the Lowe's receipt. We knew we went there, so we went there to look at that video. So let's listen again to what he did at Lowe's.
It is by the dumpster. The native location from the oldest child's cell phone shows that it is by the dumpster for that apartment complex. It then travels to Lowe's in Danvers. At that time, where the phone is showing that it's at Lowe's in Danvers, the defendant walks into Lowe's in Danvers by himself on store surveillance video. He is seen purchasing numerous items, including 5 Lowe's 5-gallon buckets, a Lennox high-tension hacksaw, 48 terry cloth towels, a framing hammer, Tyvek full coverage suit, shoe guards, mop, snips, 200 disposable rags, trash bags, Murphy oil soap, and other cleaning products. It then travels to CVS in Danvers, where Mr. Walshe is again seen on video by himself purchasing 13 different types of hydrogen peroxide. It then travels to Stop and Shop in Swampscott, where Mr. Walshe can be seen buying 3 64-ounce jugs of ammonia. The device then travels back to Mr. Walshe's mother's apartment. Mr. Walshe's mother stated that he did arrive that evening, informed her that Ana had returned to DC for a work emergency. At 7:15 p.m., Ms. Walshe's mother then calls her private investigator and leaves a message indicating that Ana Walshe has returned back to DC earlier than expected. Mr. Walshe returned home at approximately 8:30 p.m. on the 1st. At that point in time, the babysitter has left with him with the children who are asleep. From 2 a.m. to approximately 5:30 a.m., the oldest child's iPad searched and visited websites concerning instructions on how to clean blood and DNA from objects, how to remove SIM cards from phones, how to mix ammonia, and search for apartment complex in Brockton, Massachusetts.
Mm-hmm. Again, the searches were done illegally on the iPad to find the Google searches.
At 8 a.m., the babysitter returned to the Walshe residence. Mr. Walshe left the residence that morning and is on surveillance at Home Goods in Norwell, purchasing 3 area rugs and scented candles. The babysitter would state that by the end of the week, she had noticed that the downstairs area rugs had been replaced, as well as a kitchen trash can. Mr. Walshe returned from Home Goods, and the oldest child at this point in time had discovered his missing cell phone in a sibling's room. However, the oldest child's iPad continued to make searches on websites detailing how long Lowe's maintains security videos, how apartments maintain surveillance, and numerous articles about dismembering a human body. Around 4 p.m. on January 2nd, Mr. Walshe traveled alone to Home Depot in Rockland, and there he is seen on video purchasing 3 more additional 5-gallon buckets with leak-proof lids,
lots of buckets,
plastic sheeting, 24 pounds of baking soda, and a second Tyvek suit.
Mm-hmm.
He then traveled to the Derby Street shops, Your Honor, where his car is seen traveling behind the shops in the area of the dumpsters, and then eventually will return to the shops where he is by himself, where he goes to a local restaurant and purchases takeout. Mr. Walshe returned to his home. The babysitter departed, and at that evening on January 2nd, he was alone by himself in his home, except for his sleeping children. From 1 a.m. or approximately 1:18 a.m. to 7 a.m., the oldest child's iPad again searches for and visits websites to discuss removing the odor of decomposing bodies. It also visits aftermath.com. Now, this is a company that cleans up crime scenes. It also visited and looked at websites for detecting how blood can be detected using fluorescein, and how to remove blood stains from concrete. Notably,
he was going to call a crime scene cleanup company. Okay. He's the dumbest criminal on the face of the earth, right? If he wasn't Googling, then what was he doing? Like, this is wild. And the fact that he may have been Googling that's on his son's iPad and then gave his son's iPad to them on consent, allegedly, because there was a writing, makes him even a worse dumb criminal. He said the son only used the iPad so he could put spooky movies on for him.
Basement floor in the home in Cohasset is a concrete floor. This was not accessed by Mr. Walshe's mother or the babysitter that first week in January, and had a security lock at the top of it that would prevent the children from gaining access to the basement.
So the kids
On
couldn't get in the
January
basement.
3rd, Mr. Walsh brought his children to daycare and then into school and returned to the Cohasset home. At 8:30 a.m., Mr. Walsh makes his first attempt to contact his wife's cell phone by placing a call that goes unanswered. He would do this 3 more times at approximately 2:30 p.m. that day. At 10:30 a.m. on the 3rd, Mr. Walsh texted one of Ana's friends in Washington, D.C., and asked if she had seen Ana. On the 3rd, Mr. Walsh had made no attempts to contact the police, hospital, airlines, taxi, her work to locate Ms. Walsh. On the afternoon of the 3rd, Mr. Walsh visited 3 different apartment complexes in Abington and 1 in Brockton. Video from these complexes captured Mr. Walsh in the area of the dumpsters.
How did they know to go to those places in Abington? Because they got the illegal data of his location from his cell phone before they had a warrant to do it. So the fruit of the poisonous tree doctrine says if you get something illegally, everything you get stemming from that is fruit of the poisonous tree and also must be suppressed. Commonwealth is saying, we would have found it anyway, eventually, inevitable discovery. The judge has not ruled, and that's why we are going over this arraignment from April of 2023. It's Judge Diane Freniere.
For 3 of these complexes.
And she's not ruled yet. So I wanted to get this in before the ruling, so you know all the evidence that they have.
One video showed him looking into a dumpster and not putting anything into it. A second captures him taking items from his SUV by the area of the dumpster. And then the third depicts Mr. Walsh supposing a bag that appears to be heavy into the dumpster. On January 4th at 10:04 a.m., the person that Mr. Walsh had texted the day before responds to him and asks if he has heard from Ana. 10 minutes later, Mr. Walsh then calls the building that Ana Walshe worked at in D.C. and reports her missing. 5 minutes after that, he texts back to the friend and says, work is looking for her. At 10:30 is when work calls Mr. Walsh and begins the process of trying to find Miss Ana Walshe. After talking with Mr. Brian Walshe, Tishman Spire employees contact their local and national offices. They send out emails. They even go to her home to try and find Miss Walshe. They contacted local hospitals. During their calls, they encouraged Mr. Walsh to report her missing to the Cohasset police. At approximately 11:40 a.m. on January 4th, Tishman Spire Security notifies Cohasset police. This is the first time law enforcement is notified that Ana Walshe is missing. Cohasset police would travel to Mr. Walsh's home at approximately noon that day, and he would tell them about how a dinner guest had left on January 1st and inform them, and then told Cohasset police how Ana Walshe had then informed him that she needed to go back to D.C. for a work emergency, that she left between 6 a.m. and he would tell police that day when she left, she was wearing a short black coat, blue-gray hunter boots, and also had a black Prada purse. He told
all of which they coincidentally find in a dumpster. Let's keep going.
Told the local police that his oldest child had seen his wife take a taxi that morning. Cohasset police from there on would attempt to try and look.
Right, Yuri Bukhenik interviewed the 6-year-old. He got a special training to do that, but he interviewed the 6-year-old. And the 6-year-old said, I came down and mommy was on the couch underneath my blanket and she was in her pajamas. They were pink with red hearts. Like he specifically described the pajamas. And then he said, and then mommy went upstairs and she got dressed into her clothes. And then she came downstairs with a 2-foot-long duffel bag. And she fixed my iPad for me. And then she went outside to get in a taxi. That's what the 6-year-old said. Yes, we already confirmed that Yuri Bukhenik has been reassigned. We got that. Thank you. Thank you, Michael. Olivia also tweeted it. So we have confirmation that it is true. And he investigated this case too. Oh yes, he did. And here's Microdots coming in. Love Microdots so much. Marcy needs to resign if this guy gets off. Yeah. If you too. Oh, well, Richie, did you make new mugs? This one says framed. It's one of my favorite mugs, the Karen Reed mug. I'm assuming that you have new merch now. So check out Microdot's merch shop for all things Karen Freed. We don't know when she's going to rule. That's why we want to go on. That's why we want to go on. That's why we want to get all this stuff in before it's ruled on, because they just put in some supplemental papers. The trial's scheduled for October 20th. There's a hearing on the motion to dismiss maybe in 2 weeks, and the motion to dismiss has been impounded. We can't get our hands on it. I can assume it's the 24th of July. I already have it in my calendar. We're going to watch it because we hopefully from oral arguments, if they televise it, we'll be able to find out a lot more about what's in that motion to dismiss and what else maybe Proctor did. So I don't know when she's going to rule, but I wanted to get this in before. So here we go.
Locate Ana Walshe by contacting Cohasset police. From there on would attempt to try and locate Ana Walshe by contacting airlines, taxis, Uber, Lyft, and also attempting to get cell phone records. By January 5th, Cohasset police had established that Ana Walshe had not flown to Washington, D.C. on JetBlue, the normal airline she takes, and that she had a return flight for January 3rd. They also learned that she had not left the country, flying out of Logan Airport.
Oh yeah, she has dual citizenship with Serbia as well.
They had learned that she had not used Uber, Lyft, and they had contacted local taxi companies, and none had gone to that residence. Cell phone records reveal that the last connection her phone signaled off of a tower was sometime between 3 and 4 a.m. on January 2nd, and that tower provided coverage for the Walshe home in Cohasset. On the 5th, Cohasset also notified state police to aid them in their investigation. The Massachusetts State Police notified and collected dozens of officers to come and help search the area, which included doing canvasses of the area, searching the woods of the area, utilizing a dive team to search the backyard pool and the airway. Both Cohasset and state police also sent detectives to Washington, D.C. in an effort to locate Ana Walshe. At approximately 9:30 a.m. on January 5th, while law enforcement is undergoing all this searching, the defendant travels to his mother's apartment building in Swampscott, and his phone shows through native location data that it is in the area of the dumpster. He would then speak to
Native location data that was obtained how?
detectives later on that evening, and he would again tell them that Ana Walshe had left for a work emergency between 6 and 7 a.m. on the 1st with a black Prada bag, a short black coat, a Louis Vuitton overnight bag, hunter boots, and potentially an Hermes watch. On the 6th, detectives spoke with Mr. Walshe again, and he agreed to turn over the digital devices from his home, which included the son's iPad, the child's iPad, and his cell phone and the child's cell phone.
No, that's not true, because we just watched the hearing to suppress. See, this is how they put media spin on this from the beginning. But apparently, according to Yuri Bukhenik, he was allowed to search everything. Let's hear him say that again, because in the written agreement, we've read it several times. And if you haven't read it, there's a link to all the shows on this case below in the show notes. Lynn Beland wrote to Tracy Miner, and the agreement was for the child's iPad and Brian Walsh's cell phone, but only for communications between December 25th, Christmas Day, and the date of seizure, which was January 6th. They were not supposed to seize the child's cell phone, so this is new. And if that's how they got the location data for Lowe's, then this is also going to be a problem. Hear that again.
A Louis Vuitton overnight bag, hunter boots, and potentially an Hermes watch. On the 6th, detectives spoke with Mr. Walshe again, and he agreed to turn over the digital devices from his home, which included the son's iPad, the child's iPad, and his cell phone and the child's cell phone.
No, it was only the iPad and his cell phone. But again, they misstate a lot of things in court, just like Lally and Brennan did. This is Greg Connor, Norfolk District Attorney's Office.
From the 6th into the 7th, investigators would download and search these devices. And in doing so, they would see the internet history of the iPad. They would see the noted location data from the two phones. It had become clear at this point.
He's admitting that they did it. He's admitting that they did it between the 6th and the 7th. They didn't have a warrant for the phone until the 9th. Keep that in mind. Everything they got from that, all the video showing him throwing stuff into dumpsters, showing him buying a hacksaw and all of these towels, finding things that may have been in those dumpsters where he was. Is that all fruit of the poisonous tree? And if he's guilty as hell, does that mean it's okay for them to violate his constitutional rights? These are the questions that I have for you.
To the 5th into the 7th, that the defendant had not told the truth about the whereabouts of Miss Walshe and his whereabouts as well. For on the 6th, Your Honor, he had told investigators that he had gone to CVS and Whole Foods in the Swampscott area. Police officers went to both of those locations and could not find surveillance video of him in those two stores. On the 8th, officers obtained search warrants for Mr. Walsh's home and vehicle and began the processes of searching those items over the next 2 days. In the basement, Your Honor,
There's a question about whether those search warrants were obtained based on the illegally seized evidence. BZB, girl, this is Judge Cannone's courtroom. This is Judge Cannone presiding, so it is the same courtroom. This is back in 2023 when Beverly Cannone was assigned to this case in Norfolk Superior Court.
found 8 red-brown stains that initially tested positive for the presence of blood. One of those stains has subsequently gone to the lab and did not pass confirmatory testing. Mr. Walsh's Volvo SUV also tested positive for the presumptive presence of blood in the driver's side seat control areas, the passenger floor mats, in the rear trunk area. On the 8th, by January 8th, Your Honor, all of the dumpsters that police could identify that Mr. Walshe had gone to, with the exception of going to the Swampscott dumpster on the 5th, had been emptied and taken to CMAS. CMAS is a large-scale waste-to-energy recycling facility where the contents of the dumpsters are shredded and incinerated. This process goes on 24 hours a day, and by that time, by the 8th, all of those contents had been incinerated, leaving behind only a fine ash. However, law enforcement was able to go to the...
There's Judge Cannone. If you're not looking at your screen and you're not on scaffolding, or you're not driving your 18-wheeler down the highway like my guy who changed his name to Truckers Against Tie Clips. Love you. If you want to look at your screen, here's Judge Cannone and Clerk Jim swiveling around in his chair back in April 2023.
The Swampscott dumpster. By the 8th, all of those contents had been incinerated, leaving behind only a fine ash. However, law enforcement was able to go to the Swampscott dumpster. In the Swampscott dumpster, they found items, including a set of Volkswagen keys, Ana Walshe's COVID vaccination card, an Hermes watch identical to what Ana Walshe was known to wear, blue-gray hunter boots, a black product purse, and a short black coat. Also located in the dumpster, Your Honor, were rugs consistent with those that had been found that were in the living room and the kitchen of the Cohasset home. These rugs contained red-brown staining as well, and a piece of a Gucci necklace consistent with one that Ana Walshe wore was found within one of the 2 rugs. The dumpster contained numerous items identical to those that Mr. Walshe had purchased at Lowe's, which included a Tyvek suit, a Lennox high-tension hacksaw, hammer, hatchet, and snips. The hatchet was purchased at Home Depot. The Tyvek suit had a red-brown stain on the exterior, The stain was tested, and Ana Walshe DNA was determined to be a contributor. The hacksaw had red-brown staining in several areas. When it was disassembled, a small fragment of bone was recovered. These items are being processed for DNA.
Did you catch that? They found a bone fragment on the hacksaw. Somebody said, I think you're calling him a monster a little too soon. And to that I say, there was a bone fragment found on the hacksaw. The hacksaw that he's on video purchasing. Props to Greg Connor for pronouncing, it says here Maze, but it's Hermes, and you can pronounce it a lot of different ways. And at least he didn't say Hermes, Hermes, Hermes. Bone fragment, which was still undergoing confirmatory testing at the time of this arraignment, which was in April of 2023. Here we go.
Also in the investigation, it was determined that in 2001, Ana Walshe had taken out approximately $2.2 million in life insurance on herself, where Brian Walshe is the sole beneficiary. And as a result of working at Tishman Speyer, she has an additional more than $400,000 life insurance policy where he was the sole beneficiary. In total, her life insurance is over $2.7 million, where the defendant was the sole beneficiary. Your Honor, as a result of the extensive investigation that was done into this case, the defendant's grave incentive to flee of being charged with murder, and that he has one open matter, I would ask that the defendant be held without bail.
All right, thank you very much, Ms. Miner.
Thank you, Your Honor. The defense would ask that bail be set at $250,000 in cash. And I can respond to some of the points
Sure.
that the prosecutor has made. Your Honor, it has been 4 months since Ana Walshe has last been seen. It was on January 1st of this year. As Your Honor knows, under Massachusetts law, a person is not presumed dead because they're missing for a period of 7 years, because it is easy for a single person to disappear if they want to disappear. In that 4 months, there's been no body found. There's been no indication of if she died, how she died. There's no murder weapon. There's no motive. The government suggests that that Brian Walshe suspected his wife of an affair, but there's really no evidence of that. His mother did hire a private investigator shortly before New Year's that year. She told Mr. Walshe that she was doing that. He said she was crazy. Ana's a good girl, but go ahead. You'll be proved wrong. The investigator never found any evidence of an affair because they didn't actually have time to start doing anything before Ana went missing. Mr. Walshe had no idea that his wife was having an affair until he learned it in discovery in this case. There was a friend over. The last time she was seen was New Year's Eve. They were having Mr. Walshe made dinner for the friend. They were having a celebratory New Year's Eve dinner. They were having champagne. They each signed the outside box of the champagne bottle, saying that 2023 was going to be their best year ever.
Best year ever.
Triumvirate, that there was only good things going to happen in 2023. There was no indication of any discord, no silences, no feeling that there was anything but happiness between the couple. The friend did leave at 1:30 in the morning, and that was the last time that she was seen by an adult. With respect to the Google searches, Your Honor, yes, I get that they're problematic. But there were other Google searches that the prosecutor didn't mention, including a search of how to set up a charitable corporation to give away large lottery winnings, tax-free. Well, Mr. Walshe never won a large amount of money in the lottery, and Mr. Walshe never set up a charitable contribution. There were also Google searches on best places to go for a family vacation in 2023. Best places to go for family vacations, all in the same time period, Your Honor. With respect to the blood in the basement, the police did take 8 separate swabs from the basement, which they thought contained blood. One of the 8 that we know of was sent to the lab for a confirmatory test. It came back negative. I don't know if the other 7 were just waiting for them to come back, or if they just decided to abandon that when one came back negative and not spend the money to do the other 7.
Oh, girl. Oh, girl. Oh, girl. They collected blood in solo cups from the scene of a murdered police officer named John O'Keefe a year prior to this at 34 Fairview, and they never tested that blood. Do you know how long it took them to test the alleged DNA in Karen Reed's trial? Like that hair, the apparent hair, the little hair that could, and the DNA on the outside of the taillight. It took them years, girl. This is only, what, less than 2 months after his initial arrest? They didn't test anything yet. If you live in Massachusetts, be afraid, be very afraid.
But while it may be that the police who saw the little swabs, the spots, which look really like rust, it's an old basement, it's an old house.
They looked really like rust. Did they do confirmatory testing for blood? You can tell she's a white-collar lawyer. Oh, boy.
It was blood, at least the one that was tested came back negative. With respect to the Tyvek suit, Your Honor, we did get the forensics back from the DA. It does test positive by a large number for Ana Walshe's DNA. It also tests positive for another unknown person's DNA. And when they tried to match Brian Walshe's DNA to that unknown DNA, it came back very, very small, infinitesimally small. So that, well, you can't rule him out. The conclusion was you can't rule him in. So it suggests that there was at least another person's DNA on that Tyvek suit. With respect to cleaning supplies, yes, Mr. Walshe bought a lot of cleaning supplies. Many of them were still in the basement, untouched. But the police photographed them. Those photographs were presented in the discovery. Your Honor, with respect to CVS and Whole Foods, they did interview Mr. Walshe. He said he went to CVS. He didn't say which one. They assumed it was Swampscott. That's not because he said it was in Swampscott. They actually followed up with me and said, can you get me which CVS he went to? Got back to them, said Danvers, and guess what? That's where he was. They got the video. We told them which CVS it was. The fact that they went to the wrong one at the beginning was no fault of Mr. Walshe's. With respect to Whole Foods, Your Honor, Whole Foods is right next to Bennett Liquors, where the prosecutor himself said that they saw Mr. Walshe in the parking lot that day. Mr. Walshe has been cooperative with the police from day one. As the prosecutor indicated, he consented to give his phones to the police. He consented to give the iPads to the police. He allowed 3.
Microdot says he needs an Alan Jackson. Lubin Dubin says, I'm not impressed with this attorney. She looks out of her depth and unconfident. She's not representing him anymore. Now he's got Larry Tipton and he's on it. But according to her own agreement with Lynn Beland, it was only the one cell phone and the iPad. She misspoke here. And this is why you get yourself a criminal attorney who specializes in murder cases when you're facing murder 1 charges.
Consent searches of the place, including with blood sniffing canines, where the canines came up with nothing. He consented to draining the home's pool, which came up with nothing. He's been nothing but cooperative in this. He did call the employer on Wednesday when she was gone for 3 days and asked if she was there. Your Honor, that followed a pattern. Since Thanksgiving, Ana Walshe was not being able to be contacted for periods of days at a time. When Brian asked her about that, she said, "Oh, don't be a worrywart. Don't call my employer." He waited 3 days to call her employer, assuming she had gone back to DC as she said she was going to, and was involved in a work emergency. When talking to Tishman Spire, the head of security said that they would notify the police because the security person there had contacts with law enforcement. And they in fact did contact both the Washington DC police and the Cohasset police. The Cohasset police came out to the home in Cohasset that afternoon, and Mr. Walshe gave 2 interviews on that same day. Your Honor, the prosecution also suggests maybe a financial motive because of life insurance policies, but there's no evidence Mr. Walshe was in the least bit needing of money. His mother, as the prosecution knows, is wealthy. She's given tens of thousands of dollars to Ana and to Brian. He was not in need of anything, nor were his children. Your Honor, and that brings me to the point of Mr. Walshe has been the children. He has 3 young children who he has been the primary caregiver since each of those children were born. He's gotten them up, he's gotten them clothed, he's gotten them bathed, he's taken them to school, he's taken them to appointments, he's taken them to the beach. He was the primary caregiver of those children. Ana worked a lot. She wasn't home on nights and weekends, even when she was working in Boston. She moved to DC for a job in March of 2022, where she would come home on weekends if she could. Not every weekend, and even on weekends when she was home, she spent a fair amount of time without being with the children. Mr. Walshe is the primary caregiver, always has been. It may be somewhat easy to disappear if you're an adult and single. It is not easy to disappear with 3 young children. Those children live in Massachusetts. The only family he has are the 3 young children. His mother, who also lives in Massachusetts. So I would suggest that there is no risk of flight here. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Clerk? Held without oath.
Counsel, I need 2 dates, a pretrial conference and a pretrial hearing date.
Another loud whisper into the mic by Judge Cannone. Held without, get another date. I mean, did Tracy Miner really think they were going to let him out on bail?
Could I suggest August 23rd?
Let me just check, Jimmy.
Sure.
Because it will be with me.
Yep.
That's fine with defense.
Okay, that's fine.
Great, August 23rd, and then a pretrial hearing date, I would suggest something in October, not a Thursday.
And after maybe the end of October, Jim?
Yes, after the 13th.
Could I suggest October 25th, another Wednesday?
No, Jim, can we go? I'm out for 2 weeks. I'm out the week of the 16th and the 23rd.
Of course.
Just
Tape
so you know,
time.
I've been assigned this case.
Yes, Your Honor.
Could we have the first week in November?
Been assigned this case.
I'm out too.
Special assignment.
How about November 1?
That might be difficult for me. Could we do the 2nd?
Yes. 'Cause you're in the-
Yes, because I'll be over there.
Can you do, Counsel, can you do November 2nd?
Yes.
Great. Mr. Walshe, you're going to be held without bail. Your matter is continued 8/23/23 for pretrial conference 2 p.m. and 11/2/23 for pretrial hearing, also 2 p.m. Counsel, do you want your client brought in on the pretrial conference? Okay, Dim.
Yes, please.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you, Your Honor. Thank you, Ms. Clerk.
Justice for Ana. But will there be? Will there be? Not a lot of people in the courtroom. People are saying, isn't this old? Why are we replaying it? Yes, we're replaying it because this case was not getting a lot of attention at the time because everyone thought it was a slam dunk. Slam dunk. They got him on video buying all this stuff, all these cleaning supplies, the hacksaw. Then they got his location data going to these different dumpsters around town and other towns. Then they got video of him throwing things in the dumpster. And then they search the dumpster and they find, oh, a hacksaw that looks like the one that he bought at Home Depot. There's a bone fragment. Slam dunk guilty. Maybe slam dunk guilty. But all of these things may have been illegally seized by the search of his phone by Bukhenik, Proctor, Fanning, Guarino, Connor Keefe. And that's the biggest. You should be frightened if you live in Massachusetts. You should be absolutely frightened and outraged. And maybe it took the Karen Reed case to blow this thing up. True Crime Junkie says, I hope he gets his justice for Ana. The hearing on the motion to dismiss is July 24th. We're going to be watching that. We already watched the suppression hearing on this. And if you haven't watched, the playlist is for all the videos we've done is located in the show notes below. Thank you, Susan C., for gifting 5 memberships. You're awesome. I also want to show you a civil lawsuit that was filed against Diana Walshe, the mother of Brian Walshe, with regard to the home that they were renting. Thank you, Susan, for gifting 5 memberships. You're amazing. Thomas said Bukhenik has been moved out of the DA's office and moved to a field office in South Boston. Thank you so much, Thomas Rhodes. We covered that a little bit earlier. But I think after you put in that super chat, thank you, Adam Lally, resignation. Do you feel there's anything sus about the amount of searches, one after another, with so much detail? Dumbest criminal on the face of the planet? If they've got him on video buying all this stuff and throwing things in the dumpster, but again, the body's never been found. If all this evidence is suppressed, what do they have, really? Yeah, I think those Google searches are ridiculous. Bernie Saint from Australia. I don't know. Proctor et al. Worked hard to prosecute an innocent woman and worked just as hard to stuff up a chance to put away a highly likely murder. All they needed to do was get a warrant to say he lied to us about where he was. So we need his location data so we can make a timeline, because time is of the essence because she's a missing person. I mean, I'm just a lawyer for a couple of decades. I'm not a judge. I'm not law enforcement, but you tell me if they had probable cause without the illegal searches to get a warrant. I don't need a badge. Says, I live in East Texas and know Guadalupe River. Well, latest this morning, 68 died, 28 children, 11 still missing. New flash flood warning in Central Texas issued. Mel, I will email you with more information on how to help. Thank you. Thank you. I feel paralyzed and I am devastated about what's happening. eBay Warhol. Here's Tracy Fagan. Unfortunately, the only way for them to change is guilty, go free, and this may be the case. Is it better to have one guilty person go free than to have one innocent person incarcerated on illegally obtained evidence or proctored evidence, I ask you? Jennifer H., I read on Twitter that Yuri was reassigned to South Boston. Yes, he was. Thank you, Willow Armadillo, for becoming a member. Frenchie's mom says, from look the other way to we did it anyway. Thank you, Skybell, for gifting 2 memberships. And Justice for Turtle Boy says, I've been a member for 3 months, and it's my only YouTube membership that I have. Thank you for everything. No, thank you. Gustav said, a layman watching Law and Order could do a better job than these cops. Geez, yeah, I was thinking about this too. I was thinking about, because I think I've watched every episode of every Law and Order ever made, every spinoff. Remember Jack McCoy? Anybody who ever watched 5 episodes of Law and Order would say Jack McCoy would say, go back and get the evidence legally. Get a proper warrant. Do it the right way. Right? Is it really that hard? Cherie, wish I could get a copy of the motion to dismiss. No, it's impounded. It is not there. Yuri, Sandy B. Yuri was transferred out of the DA's office this weekend. I know. There's one thing good to have happened, because again, he was exposed in his testimony in the suppression hearing in the Brian Walshe case, interviewing a 6-year-old, maybe lying about his communications with Lynn Beland. He said he never spoke to her on the phone that day, that he made the agreement about the search. Who knows what else? We don't know. For the love of the traveling trooper, is this woman really serious? I'm gobstruck. I think you're talking about his attorney. Ashley Rose said, Melanie, they made the decision on Yuri July 1st and Tully on 6/29. Hopefully they are under his eye. Colonel Noble is watching. Has the alleged bone fragment been confirmed? Well, I don't know. I know there were some motions flying around about DNA. It's hard to get documents on this case. Does anybody have absolute confirmation? Because I'm looking at an article here from, this was all earlier. This was around the same time that he was of this arraignment right here. And this is the New York Post article, which I think they got from like the Daily Mail. And it's a picture of a dumpster. And it says, bone fragment discovered on hacksaw, tossed and trashed by accused killer Brian Walshe, according to court documents. Here's a dumpster. Is this the dumpster? I don't know. And so I don't know whatever happened with the DNA testing. Then the photos released that same week. So many pop-ups on the New York Post. Here's photos of him in Lowe's with a mask on. You can see because the employee here has a Lowe's on the back of his jacket or shirt. He's got the rags, he's got the mops. A litany of supplies that would aid in the dismemberment and disposal of a body. Buckets. Here's the security footage. And then here's him carrying what looks like a really heavy trash bag. He's got a mask on. In area dumpsters. How is he in custody if they suppress the evidence? Well, he's in custody because of the charges and all the evidence they had. They are now moving before the trial starts in October to suppress the evidence. That is a motion that is made prior to trial. So they're holding him on probable cause and the fact that a grand jury indicted him for these crimes. However, the trial is yet to start. You're there in Happier Times. It's from the court appearance that we just watched. There's a photo from Ana's, I think, Facebook. There's also some weird thing that happened in Washington, D.C. about some fake law enforcement. And I fell into that rabbit hole last night, big old dog, and I don't know what to make of that. Big old dog said, Melanie, remember the fake feds in D.C.? That was Ana's building. Odd. Yeah, and there was an article that said that she tried to cover it up or she wouldn't answer questions. I fell into that rabbit hole and I don't know a lot about it enough to speak intelligently on it right now, but you guys might want to dive into that if you have some time and you want to get into a rabbit hole. The building that she worked at in Washington, D.C., there was like some fake guys and those guys were eventually indicted. Can't remember where the article is right now, or I'd give you more information on it, but I know you guys are good at digging stuff up. And that was crazy. If anybody can just put a little summary of that in the chat, I can look for it. Thank you, What the Duck, for gifting 5 memberships. You're awesome. Stephanie Flynn said I was on BBC about something in the UK law last week. Congratulations, Stephanie. You getting stuff done in the UK. Nana Bear, was he assigned to the place Dever is? I don't know. I do not know. The news like literally broke while I was already on the air. Shelly, thanks for becoming a new member. And Susan, thanks for becoming a new member. Mrs. Squirrel says, Melanie, will you cover the new AJ case if it is streamed? We're already doing a dive into that. And I want to cover just at least the basics of it with you first, get some documents and go over it. It's a tragic, tragic case out of California. 4 Pepperdine students were hit and killed by a 22-year-old driving, I think, a BMW around what they call Dead Man's Curve in Malibu. Not drunk driving. It's not a drunk driving case. Cindy says a public pretender will get you in deep. Pay for the defense attorney. Well, Tracy Miner was a paid attorney. She was representing him in the federal case about the fake Andy Warhols. So she was paid for it. Now he has public defender Larry Tipton, who is a million times better. So I just have to disagree with your comment because Larry Tipton is one of the best attorneys in Massachusetts. He also happens to be a public defender. I will also tell you that here on Long Island, Rex Heuermann is represented by Michael Brown, who is a stellar attorney. And in Suffolk County, they do not have any legal aid or public defenders that are certified or able to try murder cases. So they hire private attorneys to do it, but they're paid by the county. And Mike Brown is an amazing lawyer. So I can't necessarily agree with your comment, but I thank you for it. Rumor is Dever is on leave, says Double Trouble 247. I did see something about that in passing. Can't confirm, but I did see it. And it looked like the date of her going on to leave was like around the time of her testimony. I don't know. Also understand, don't believe everything you read on Twitter because people can, mock up documents and, make things look like something they're not. So I can't confirm that about Dever at all. Let's take a look at the civil suit because this is interesting. And then we're going to come back at 2:00 to do the Aiden Carney hearing together. So that'll be fun. Let's hope somebody picks it up and wants to actually stream it. Oh yeah, I'm going to cover Long Island serial killer. I've been to court several times on that case. I already have a playlist on it in addition to all the Gilgo killings. And so I have done extensive coverage on that case. We've just been on Karen Reed for a while and a whole lot of stuff wasn't happening in the Rex Heuermann case, but I will be going to court, I think, in 2 weeks on that. Let me show you what I found. Okay, here's a lawsuit filed by the landlord of the house that the Walshes were renting against Diana Walshe, the mother, for damages to the house. This trial for Walshe is going to be on October 20th. As always, there are extensive show notes below that have all the information that if you're coming in late, you might be able to see. Complaint with jury demand. This is a case called Peter Capozzoli versus Diana Walshe and an insurance company because apparently the insurance company disclaimed, and this was filed all the way back in May of 2023. Peter Capozzoli was the owner of the home that they were renting at 516 Chief Justice Cushing Highway. It was rented to Diana Walshe, who's Brian Walshe's mother. It was located at 516 Chief Justice Cushing Highway. We've looked at the Zillow listing before. It's a very nice house. And here's some of the allegations. On or about March 9th of 2022, defendant Diana Walshe entered into a lease with plaintiff for the property, a true and complete copy of which is attached as Exhibit A. The lease provided, inter alia, here's your Latin lesson for the day. It means, among other things, for defendant Diana Walshe to occupy the property as the tenant from March 1st of 2022 till August 31 of 2022. The lease also provided that the property would be used solely for residential purposes. The defendant Diana Walshe represented to the plaintiff and his real estate broker that she intended to occupy the property herself while recuperating from an illness and would be accompanied by her son and daughter-in-law and their 3 children who would act as defendant Diana Walshe's caretakers during this period. Plaintiff subsequently learned that defendant Diana Walshe's son was named Brian Walshe and his wife was named Ana Walshe. Among other provisions, the lease entered into by defendant Walshe contained the following requirements and provisions. The tenant agrees not to use the premises or permit the premises to be used for any improper or unlawful purpose. And there's a clause in the lease that says you have to keep the property clean and in good repair, turn it over in good repair. And there's also provision for attorney's fees. And then it goes on to say the lease also gave defendant Diana Walshe the option to extend the term of the lease for another 6 months with the monthly rental rate at $5,000 per month. Defendant Walshe did, in fact, exercise this option on or about August 4th of 2022 and extended the term of the lease through and including February 28th of 2023. During the course of her and her family's occupancy of the property pursuant to the lease, defendant Walshe and her family damaged, defaced, misused, and abused the property in numerous ways and used the premises for improper and unlawful purposes, causing substantial damages to the property, which will be very costly to repair. Those damages include, without limitation, the damages described in the following paragraphs. First, defendant Walshe and her family repeatedly placed their large German Shepherd dog in the rear fenced-in area of the property for unreasonably long periods of time and left the animal there unsupervised and uncontrolled. As a result, the dog incessantly scratched at the doors, the shingle siding, the window screens, and the fencing, causing substantial damage to the exterior of the house, the doors, and the fence. The dog also was permitted to dig up the landscaping in the backyard, leaving large areas bare of any grass. Second, defendant Walshe and her family punched numerous holes in the walls and ceilings of the home without repair. In one instance, defendant Walshe's son, Brian, entered the attic and punched his foot through the ceiling of his and his wife's bedroom, leaving a large hole of more than a foot in diameter. I have so many questions. Brian Walshe, the guy who's sitting in Norfolk County Pokey, accused of the murder of his wife, Ana, punched his foot through the ceiling of him and his wife's bedroom? I have questions. When was that? Third, defendant Diana Walshe and her family abused and misused the in-ground swimming pool on the property. Among other things, defendant Walshe and or her family members took rocks from the landscaped rock wall in the backyard and threw them into the pool, damaging both the surface of the pool and the rock wall. Because of this neglect and abuse, the in-ground pool has suffered substantial damage. Fourth, on or about January 1st, 2023, upon information and belief, defendant Walshe's son, Brian, murdered and dismembered his wife, Ana, in the property. This caused blood and other human remains to contaminate the home, including the Walshe's bedroom, where the act apparently took place, and the basement, where apparently the dismemberment and disposal took place. The contamination of the property required plaintiff to hire a company that specialized in decontamination of murder and other crime scenes at a substantial expense. This decontamination process involved, among other things, the full cleaning, treatment, and painting of the basement and the removal of the bedroom wood flooring and treatment of the underlying support structure. The decontamination process also involved the thorough cleaning and decontamination of the bathrooms and other areas. Well, we didn't know that. We didn't know that allegedly the crime occurred in the bedroom and then the taking apart of the body occurred in the basement, but it's in the civil suit. I wonder if they have photos in the civil case. Fifth, when the police learned of this murder, they conducted a full forensic examination and testing of the property, which caused substantial damage, including without limitation the following. The police took up part of the wood flooring in the Walshe's bedroom. The police sprayed a purple blood-detecting liquid called luminol over numerous locations in the home, including most of the bathrooms, leaving stains on walls, mattresses, furniture, and bathroom facilities like toilets, sinks, and showers. The police entered the attic and disturbed much of the insulation while looking for evidence, and the police dismantled, tested, and examined the filter for the in-ground pool, necessitating its replacement. Most or all of these damages were pointed out to defendant Diana Walshe during her inspection of the property in January and February of 2023. Nevertheless, Diana Walshe failed and refused to repair any of these items. In addition to these tangible damages to the property, because of the widely publicized murder committed in the property by Walshe's son, the property has now been psychologically impacted, which has substantially decreased its potential rental and sale values. And then they go on to talk about bad faith dealings of the insurance company for not covering it. But it just gave us a whole bunch more information about what may have happened to Ana Walshe. And it's chilling and it's disturbing. But was the evidence collected properly? That remains to be seen because we are awaiting Judge Diane Freniere's decision on the motion to suppress. The house is psychologically damaged. Who wants to rent that house now? Olivia said Brian Walshe should hire Ian Whiffen to make his Google searches disappear. And 2, he should claim he was actually Googling Hockomock sports or ozone basketball, not something incriminating. Well done. Whatever Clever said, I don't think MSP would have had probable cause to get a search warrant. They had no proof that a crime had been committed, just a missing person. We know it's not illegal to go missing. We talked about the fake feds. Charles said maybe Ana had a passport on her maiden name. She had dual citizenship with Serbia. So I don't know, Charles. Charles is here from South Africa and he can see this from so many miles away. Janelle Brennan's lack of self-awareness. Thank you for 20. Thank Jesus for Melanie Little, Turtle Boy, Young Jerks, Glare. The list goes on and on for exposing and advocating for the victims of the Norfolk County corruption. It is deep AF. Do better, Massachusetts. We are going. We ain't got no quit. Thanks, Janelle. Duncan Idaho says, seems like a factually guilty person might have to go free to give the state incentive to really clean house. That's a real shame, but I think the best available option. Thank you, Duncan Idaho, for your 10. Sage says, I emailed you a screenshot of Karen's post on the Facebook group about Devers. Her caption is fire. Thank you. Do we know that that's her actual account? Unfortunately, I have about 4,000 emails right now, so I won't be able to find it while I'm on the stream with you. Thank you, Sandra, for your Venmo. Did you hear Yuri was transferred out of the DA's office this weekend? I did. We covered that a little bit earlier. Thank you for your Venmo. All righty, my friends. We're going to come back to cover. All right, let's take a look. Let's take a look here because Melinda sent me the actual. I couldn't get into the Boston Herald because the Boston Herald has a paywall. So let me just pull up the article for you about Yuri Bukhenik because Melinda was nice enough to paste it into my email. And we're here, so let's cover it. Okay. Well, Massachusetts State Police Sergeant in Karen Reed case booted from the DA's office. Sergeant Yuri Bukhenik was reassigned to the South Boston Barracks, and that's from today's Boston Herald. 10:05 a.m. There he is. Embattled Sergeant Yuri Bukhenik has been kicked out of the Norfolk DA's office. He's now assigned to the South Boston Barracks, where he will patrol that section of the city. The state police confirmed Monday, which is today. Bukhenik's stint in Norfolk County came to an inauspicious close Sunday, making him the third trooper linked to the Karen Read case to be reassigned or fired. Ex-Trooper Michael Proctor was fired in March when State Police Colonel Jeffrey Noble accepted the MSP Trial Board's recommendation to terminate Proctor for failing to uphold agency standards. Proctor's vile texts about Read and the case were ruled, quote, derogatory, defamatory, disparaging, and or otherwise inappropriate by the trial board. Detective Lieutenant Brian Tully was removed as head of the Detective Bureau, posted at the Norfolk DA's office last October, as the Herald reported. According to an MSP statement, Tully was moved to a temporary assignment in the MSP Division of Investigative Services, but will continue to be available to assist with any cases in which he was previously involved. And the walls come crumbling down. No, wait, I wasn't done reading that article. Hang on, it just wasn't scrolling. I don't know why. Tully headed the Detective Bureau stationed at the Norfolk District Attorney's Office during the investigation into the death of Boston police officer John O'Keefe on January 29th of 2022. O'Keefe's girlfriend, Reed, 44, of Mansfield, was acquitted of his murder last month. Praise be. Even under her eye, in Gilead, Karen Read was freed. The jury foreman told the Herald the panel was unanimous in their decision to only convict Read of drunken driving, adding the police work in the case was filled with red flags from the start. The MSP investigation was a target of Reed's defense, which claims that Reed was framed by a massive police and prosecution cover-up. This is a developing story. Dun, dun, dun. Oh, here's some pictures that just popped up. There you go. We'll see what happens here, though, won't we? We'll see what happens with the Brian Walshe case. Have they been doing this for decades, you guys? Or is this just, bad luck? Are they corrupt or incompetent? Sage, I resent it with the subject, Karen Read post. Emails from my name, Sage, if you wanted to show it. Some are asking me for it. No worries either way. Okay, let's see what I can find. Hang on. My inbox is like a mess, but let me see if I can find it quickly. It's just like a Facebook. I can't, hold on. But she's retweeting or reposting something that was posted by another guy named Anthony Sanchez on Twitter that says, Kelly Dever, one of the key witnesses that perjured herself in the Karen Read trials on leave of absence, wonder what's going on. And then there's like a screenshot of something, but a lot of it is redacted. And then it's, just because Karen Read posted it, allegedly, I just don't know. So it's on the MSP. There's like a little, this is what it is. So I can't tell you with 100% certainty that this is 100% accurate. I just don't know. But I'll share it with you because you want to see it. This comes from the Justice for Officer John O'Keefe and Karen Read Turtle Boy official, I guess, Facebook group. And it says Karen Reed posted this. There's just a little line of some other document, most of which is redacted, that says Kelly Dever, BFS District E13, BAT leave of absence, 6/23/25. Does anybody know the actual date that she testified in the Karen Reed case? Anybody know the actual date of her testimony? It's being reported by Mainstream. Come on. I'm just the girl. Does that make it accurate? They also reported that they had ring camera footage of Karen Reed hitting John O'Keefe with her car, and that never materialized. So I wouldn't be surprised if she was on leave or stress or whatever, other things. Who knows? I don't know. But there it is. Thank you for sharing it with me, Sage, because a lot of people wanted to see it. Superbad says booting Lieutenant Bukhenik from the DA's office is a good first step. Hopefully it's followed soon by dismissal from MSP like they did with Proctor. Moving him won't stop him doing questionable investigations. June 3rd is when you think she testified? June 2nd, 3rd. Okay, so then she went, I don't know what BAT stands for. Boston something something. Trooper Paul for chief. This is Kristen Pino. Trooper Paul for chief. I think we need Trooper Paul to be chief. Well, I'd be stressed too. Tanine says, I bet the corruption's been going on for 30 years since he has been the DA. I don't think he's been the DA. Marcy's not been the DA for 30 years. He's been the DA since 2010, right? But he's been in politics his whole entire life. Before that, I think he served in other areas of politics. He's been a public servant. Christina Rex tweeted the MSP statement regarding Bukhenik. Thank you. Thank you. Let's see what they have to say about that. Thank you very much, Nina. This is as tweeted by Christina Rex. Official papers. It's official papers. So it's official about Yuri. It's official. Couldn't happen to a nicer guy. We like receipts here. Thank you, Nina. This is the Department of State Police personnel order. Issue date Tuesday, July 1st. Temporary duty assignment. So how did this keep under wraps since the 1st of July? I don't know. Temporary duty assignment. In accordance with the Massachusetts general law and the rules and regulations governing the Massachusetts State Police, the following temporary duty assignment is hereby announced effective Sunday, July. Okay, so it became effective Sunday, July 6th, just yesterday, through and including Saturday, October 4th, unless otherwise terminated. Meaning he's terminated, or this temporary duty assignment is terminated. From the Division of Field Services, South Boston headquarters, to the Division of Standards and Training, Office of Division Commander, Yuri Bukhenik, ID number 3543, Sergeant. And then it is signed by the new head of the Massachusetts State Police, Jeffrey Noble. And there's a second page. Department of State Police personnel order. And there's a couple of people who are also transferred, effective Sunday, July 6th. Joseph Hickey, Yuri Bukhenik, Joseph Liano. But it says Yuri Bukhenik has been transferred from the Division of Investigative Services in Norfolk County, the detective unit. He's being transferred from there to the Division of Field Services, SP South Boston headquarters. Is that a demotion? There's another tweet with a statement. Okay, let's see what they have to say for themselves. Thanks, Nina. Let's see. Well, this is interesting. Let me just digress for a second, if I will. Christina Rex, who you know is a reporter for WBZ, she's the one who got the first interview with Paul O'Keefe. She says, I'm in court in Boston right now for a series of hearings in response to what's known as the SJC Lavelle protocol. I don't know if she misspelled it, but she has it spelled Lavale protocol. A number of criminal defendants may be released today because they haven't had legal representation for a number of days, which stalls their case. The lack of representation is in part due to an unofficial work stoppage by bar advocates, private lawyers who help by doing public defense work. See my story on this here, she says. And the state's public defender program doesn't have enough attorneys to cover all of these defendants, or is conflicted out of some of the representation. The SJC says lack of representation is a violation of constitutional rights. And then she goes on to say 12 minutes ago, so a judge in Boston is now hearing case details and will determine if some of these defendants will be released. Same protocol happening in Lowell on Wednesday. First defendant up is facing drug distribution and possession charges. The first defendant is being released. He's expected back in court next week for a hearing, but again, he currently doesn't have an attorney. He's ordered to check in with probation. That's fun, isn't it? I mean, you can't make this up. Okay. Thank you, Nina. Here's the official statement from the MSP. According to Christina Rex, again, don't say Melanie Little reported this. It is Christina Rex reporting this. While we typically don't comment on individual personnel decisions, I can confirm that Sergeant Yuri Bukhenik was transferred on a temporary duty assignment to the Division of Standards and Training effective Sunday, 6 July 2025. Please see the attached personnel order, which we just read. Mechanically, the transfer passed through the Division of Field Services South Boston Barracks, which is reflected in the order titled 25 PER 408. As a sergeant assigned to the DST Commander's Office, Sergeant Bukhenik will perform a variety of administrative functions in support of the division's daily operations. Wow. So he's going to be doing some administrative paperwork. Didn't the same thing happen to Higgins? Do we even have confirmation that it happened to Higgins? In his time leading the department, the colonel has impressed upon leaders of every rank that personnel decisions should serve the best interests of the department's public safety mission. We do this by conducting a fair and robust hiring process that ensures troopers and professional staff of every background can articulate their qualifications and describe their ability to fulfill the specific responsibilities of any given role. ROLL, spelled like a Kaiser roll. Who proofreads over there? Is it Hank Brennan's paralegal? Is she moonlighting? You and I both know that should be spelled ROLE, but you know, it's a Kaiser roll. Massachusetts. What do you even call it there? A hoagie, a grinder? Something weird. I know Connecticut calls it a grinder. I'm like, it's a hero. It's a grinder. It's a hoagie. No, it's a hero. Hold on. The Division of Investigative Services is currently accepting applications for the vacancy for the sworn sergeant position in the Norfolk County State Police Detective Unit. They're accepting applications. They're not just going to give someone a promotion like they normally do. As the colonel said, following the conclusion of the second trial, the events of the last, the Karen retrial. The events of the last 3 years have challenged our department to thoroughly review our actions and take concrete steps to deliver advanced investigative training, ensure appropriate oversight, and enhance accountability. Under his direction as colonel, the state police has and will continue to improve in these regards. Our focus remains on delivering excellent police services that reflect the value of professionalism and maintaining public trust. How's your public trust now? How's your public trust now, my Massachusetts friends? How's public trust working out for you now? After you just saw, as we've been following, that was Christina Rex's tweet. Perhaps what may be an illegal search of the phone of Brian Walshe, which may lead to a suppression of all of that evidence against him, which, you know, it's pretty damn incriminating. I kind of think he did it. How about you? I kind of think he did it. But then, of course, you've got the idiots on Twitter. Remember this person whose name I do not allow to be named on my channel? You know who I'm talking about. The person who got me so mad about the Karen Reed case that I dug into it and got Garrett Wing to come on my channel. Remember that person? The same person who also got Olivia Lambo so mad that she started digging into the Karen Reed case. Yeah, that person. Let's look at what she's tweeting about Brian Walshe. This is rich. Hang on. I wonder if she deleted it. When you guys sent it to me, I was like, really? Okay. Here you go. This is on July 3rd. Today's the 7th, so she still hasn't taken it down. It's still there. I don't know who Tony Bruschi is, but this was in response to her tweet, I guess, regarding Brian Walshe. In the words of Garfield the cat, anyone who supports this douche should be drug out into the streets and shot. Is he law enforcement? This guy? Because her tweet says this. If you're on the cesspool of Twitter, which I am not, you can let her know how you feel about this. She's to thank for me getting involved in this case because she tried to make me look like I was a moron on Court TV twice for saying that John O'Keefe was not hit by a car because of his injuries. And because I've handled car accident cases for over 30 years, thousands of them, and you don't get no bumper marks or below the knee injuries, below the waist injuries from being hit as a pedestrian by a car, and that the injuries on his arm look like a dog attack. So I hired Garrett Wing. I didn't hire Garrett Wing. The defense wound up hiring Garrett Wing. I called Garrett Wing to come on my show to talk about the dog bites. And here she says this. Those with no moral compass who fought to get Karen Reed off are now trying to get Brian Walshe off, knowing there is overwhelming evidence he cut his wife into pieces. Why? The same reason they wanted Reed to get a pass, to build their platforms. I can think of nothing more corrupt than lying, defrauding, and manipulating social media to taint a jury pool to get murderers off. Block and leave them in your rearview mirror. They can dance with each other. And look who's leading the charge. He can't go to prison soon enough. I'm sorry. I don't know who he is. I don't know who MAGA Barbie is. I guess she doesn't understand that we are highlighting the fact that the Massachusetts State Police, specifically the same investigators that were involved in investigating the murder of John O'Keefe, screwed up the collection of evidence in the Brian Walshe case so disgustingly that the evidence may be suppressed. Really? As someone who's former FBI, do you not understand the Constitution and the Fourth Amendment and the need for a proper warrant to search? So I don't know who she says is leading the charge, because then she attached that tweet from somebody named MAGA Barbie. Oh, and then there's a little video from Turtle Boy in there too. Wait, let's see what that is. Oh, she attached this. Hold on, let's take a look at this. Because I don't know if these even has anything to do with Brian Walshe. So I guess she's trying to blame it on Aiden Carney.
Look at all these potential jurors. You like that, Adam Lauer? You like that, Michael Morrissey? We are getting to your potential jury pool. You told us to stop because we're too effective. But we're not going to stop. We're going to keep going. We're going to go stronger. We're going to be focusing all over the place. Look at all these potential jurors.
Did that have anything to do with Brian Walshe, what he was doing in that video? Cuzco, right? Coincidentally, Aiden met Brian Walshe when he was incarcerated for 60 days, same jail. Yep. Yep. Yeah, we're out here doing it for clicks and likes. I'm really sorry nobody watches your YouTube channel or believes anything that you have to say because you've lost all credibility. But don't accuse other people of coming out here for clicks and likes because really I'm too old to even give a shit about that. And she's got, let's see, how many views and likes. She's totally ratioed on this, I'm sure. Oh, not as many as usual. Only 13,000 views, 159 likes, 74 comments, and only 21 reshares. Oh, she's getting oh, and she says, I have featured Brian Walshe since it first happened. I will remain on it. Right. And then Doug Liberty tweets back, sure you have. If you had, you would know that they searched his phone without a warrant and have been justifying it. This will open Pandora's box, and every case these clowns touch will be reopened. That's what this is all about. Exactly. This is exactly what this is all about. Shout out to Doug Liberty for getting on there. And then she says, Hannah, a girl named Hannah, tweets, nobody's trying to get him off unless you count MSP. I'm furious this shitty investigation is the same players from the MSP have done again, means it's likely going to result in most of the evidence and likely the case being thrown out. Fourth Amendment violation. And then she tweets back, JC, what detail is there of a violation, please? It's so great when people go on there. And have no idea what they're talking about. And spew the nonsense. Mind-numbing. What do you believe they did wrong in this case? Really? You're going to come out here and tweet this kind of nonsense without really knowing what is happening? That's just, it's irresponsible. It's irresponsible. And then accuse other people? Gross. Did Karen Reed help? Like, did Karen Reed's case help uncover all of the shenanigans that are going on with these investigators? The thing is that in my title, M&M, I'm limited to 100 characters. The Karen Reed's trial and all of the corruption discovered and perhaps cover up and planting of evidence with these same players help Brian Walsh's attorney dig a little deeper to find out the same players involved here may have done some other things that have been going on for a very, very long time. It's the same players. That's the thing, M&M. It's the same players as in Karen Reed. It's Bukhenik, Fanning, Tully, Proctor. Do these people think Sandra Birchmore was a frame job? This is crazy. The Sandra Birchmore case was closed within 3 hours. Did you know that? 3 hours, it was ruled a suicide. Matthew Farwell is sitting, waiting federal trial. His trial in federal court on murder charges. So yeah, they closed Karen Reed's case in 16 hours, decided to pin it on the girl that it was a car accident. And Sandra Birchmore, 3 hours. Took them a little bit longer on Brian Walshe. And I mean, you can't deny the video evidence, right? But they didn't have a warrant to search his phone, and it was outside the scope of the consent, in my opinion. Been over it at length. eBay Warhol says MAGA Barbie is a constitutionalist, but is it a man? I didn't know if it was a man or a woman. But then I saw, then I saw the video of Aiden, and then it made sense to me that she's blaming him. 6/23 was after Karen was freed. Oh, that's right, double trouble. I don't even know what day it is anymore. Right. The acquittal was on the 18th, right? Way behind catching up, but OMG, says Casey Cat. Thank you, Queen Olive, for becoming a new member. Lawyer's daughter is here. She's been here for 13 months and says that JC is bored because Koberger pled guilty. Oh, is that what it is? Caesar, no, that was before the Karen Reed trial. I'm not sure what you're referring to. I'm a little behind. Norfolk DA is obviously still paying her, says New Hampshire woman. You can't make it up. I wish you could. I wish you could, but you can't. So Bukhenik is out. What about Fanning? He seems to have his head in everything, his hands in everything too, right? Thank you, Caitlin. You're amazing. Who are the players for the Birchmore case? You guys can help me on this because I may be conflating my cases. Fanning. Fanning is the one who cleared Matthew Farwell right away. Guarino is the one who failed to find 32 or 34,000 text messages between Stoughton police officer Matthew Farwell and his girlfriend, Sandra Birchmore, who was 23, but he met Sandra Birchmore when she was 10 or 11, took her virginity at 15, and all that was contained in the text messages, and she was pregnant at the time that she allegedly took her life. Even though there's video surveillance footage of Farwell in the lobby of her building that morning and all kinds of things like that. Fanning was involved. Canton PD was first on the scene. Cassandra Birchmore lived in Canton. Kevin Albert was involved, people say. Oh, the Turtle Boy video was before. Oh, the video of Turtle Boy that we just watched from JC's tweet was before the first trial. Thank you. So it had nothing to do with Brian Walshe at all. But as usual, she just takes things out of context and then accuses people of trying to make money off of cases when I don't know who's paying her or how she monetizes herself on Twitter. But she also has a YouTube channel that I guess she's going to do a show on it. So thank you, Christina, for your super sticker. The hearing is at 2 p.m. today. It's at 2 p.m. Betterow is in town. He's going to be there. Where's Brian Higgins? I don't know. It's like where's Waldo? Is this an unannounced live, Mitchell Samuels? No, I posted this last night. This is morning, and then at 2 p.m. we're gonna do Aiden's hearing. Thanks, Greenhead Southern Girl. I don't know. I'm too old to care, but it's so like you're FBI and you don't see like the importance of like a search warrant. Okay. Okay. She didn't name me. She has named me many, 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 many times. She's called for my disbarment, my suspension. It's all been cataloged. Am I a witness of anything? Could she be charged of witness intimidation? She did go after the jurors, right? Didn't she? I heard that Higgins yelled at Turtle Boy. I did hear that too. Wild. Eden went on a rant about Brian Walshe, so that's what she's referring to. Was it before that tweet? Because that tweet was like, what did I say, July 3rd, I think. Thanks, Andrea. All right. Any other thoughts, questions, comments, concerns before we break for lunch and then come back at 2 o'clock? When I end this stream, it's going to take you out of the 2 o'clock stream, so you don't have to get lost or anything. It's going to teleport you right over there so you can get ready. Thanks, Kate. This is on Birchmore. Lenk, Kevin Albert, MSP, Dunn, Clark, Guarino, Prince, Fanning, Tully, Colleen Crawford, and Marcy. Yeah, we've got a whole playlist on Sandra Birchmore, too. Thank you for that. Yeah, please don't put that child R word. Thank you, Tam. But please don't put that child R word in the chat. YouTube has AI and they scan chats, and I'm sure this is probably already demonetized because of the Google searches like it was last time. But please don't. Well, I can stay. I can stay for a little while, Deneen. What else do you want to talk about? just do something over there on the chat. I don't know if it's going to be an exciting hearing today, but I heard that they have some things to talk about at Aiden's hearing. Is anybody boots on the ground with over there now at Norfolk Superior? No, I understand that it's in the headline, but that doesn't YouTube doesn't like it, is all I'm trying to say. They have strict rules. It's not me, it's YouTube. They don't like it. They think you're trying to promote things like that if they see things like that. You know? That's what they do. That's what they do. I don't know. I don't know where Higgins is. Tina, the nurse, is in there in her car to get there now to go to Aiden's hearing. Awesome. I think it's in the big courtroom too, so I think everyone will be able to get in. Courtney says, Dynasty better own action. Thank you, Wise Gal 81. Yeah, let's do that. The New York Post article about the fake feds, because I did save that in my New York Post article. Well, this is really funny. Thanks, Catherine, for your Venmo. Unfortunately, your full name is the name of someone else, so your profile picture is not that other person, so I'm not going to say it. But thank you very much for your Venmo. She just says thanks. And I was like, I saw it come up and I'm like, this person paid me on Venmo. That's weird, but it's not the same person. You know, according to the profile picture. I did save that Post article. Hang on a second. Talk amongst yourselves for a second. Talk amongst yourselves. And in the meantime, has anybody said that they're going to cover the hearing, like on video, like Law and Crime or Court TV, or anybody? Are we going to have to suffer through the Zoom feed? Oops. Okay. I have a love-hate relationship with the New York Post. I have the app on my phone, but their website has so many pop-ups that it's really hard to watch, but we're going to do the best we can. Thank you, Wise Gal 81, for suggesting this. Okay. VE King, no, Google does not hold you responsible for what your chat says after you moderate them. This is ridiculous. Stop saying this. I don't know who you are or why you're here, but I am telling you what I have learned. So thanks so much for coming by. I appreciate you. Where's Melanie Little's left swipe in StreamYard? I just swiped myself out. That happens sometimes because that happens too. It's a real thing. Hang on. The swipe wheel miss. I know it's been a while. It's been a while. It's a hearing on Aiden. There's no new charges for Aiden. There's a hearing. 6 of his charges have been dismissed. As you may recall, we went over the decision on the motion to dismiss. A lot of people were upset about it, but you know, again, that's just the judge's decision. But 6 of his felony charges out of 16, I think, were dismissed, and so that's really a good result. All right, so this is what you guys were interested in learning more about so that you can dive into the rabbit hole yourself. And this was published all the way back January 13th of 2023. So this was around the same time that Brian Walshe was first brought into court. And it's just something Ana Walshe had been involved in. I don't know if it has anything to do with anything, but I found it to be a little bit interesting. Residents of Ana Walshe managed DC building fear phony agents cover up. Let's go back to January 2023. Missing Massachusetts mom, Ana Walshe, managed a luxury Washington, D.C. apartment building infiltrated by phony federal agents, and residents say she was hiding information about the bizarre episode. Members of the tenant association in the Crossing building, which houses journalists and government workers in the upstart Navy Yard neighborhood near the Capitol, say they fear that, I'm going to butcher this name, Arian, A-R-I-A-M, last name is Taherzadeh, T-A-H-E-R-Z-A-D-E-H, and Haider, H-A-I-D-E-R, Ali, will avoid a full public airing of their actions, and that Walsh's employer, Tishman Speyer, is withholding scandalous details from them. Walshe, 39, was described to the Post as, quote, very forceful and shady, end quote, in her handling of the aftermath of the scandal, even claiming to tenants on one occasion, see how it jumps like that she wasn't Ana Walshe in an apparent effort to duck their questions following the April 6th FBI raid that busted Ali and Taherzadeh. Oh, WBZ has the pool camera. Thank you, Patricia. Yay. That's awesome. Taherzadeh pleaded guilty in August, that would have been August of 2022, to crimes including conspiracy, unlawful possession of a large capacity ammunition feeding device, and voyeurism. Ali pleaded guilty in October to conspiracy, bank fraud, and unlawful possession of a large capacity ammunition feeding device. He will be sentenced February 24th. That was 2023. Taherzadeh does not have a sentencing date set. Many questions remain unanswered about the bizarre case in which the duo stockpiled tactical gear, weapons, ammunitions, and surveillance equipment while providing free rent to a Secret Service agent and lavishing gifts and flashing badges to an array of local and federal law enforcement officers while claiming to represent the non-existent U.S. Special Police. There's Ana and Brian in happier days. One tenant provided the Post with a photo of what one of the imposters said was a master key code, meaning they may have been able to plant cameras throughout the building, as questions remained about whether they were associated with foreign actors as well as Washington security agencies while infiltrating the complex. Quote, I am very concerned about the voyeurism allegations after the men pled guilty. I attempted multiple times to gain information regarding which areas and units had been impacted, and if mine had been one of them, but never received any answers. A female member of the Tenant Association's board, who asked to not be identified by name, told the Post. Quote, I believe the management team here is doing everything they can to avoid sharing any information about the situation at all, even information not covered by an investigation, which makes me believe the information they are withholding could be considerably detrimental to them. A person who lived in the complex and was close to the two men, whom building management leaned on when security issues occurred, said that, quote, I was able to witness much of the infiltration's inner workings. They were able to establish audio and video surveillance in and outside their units, as well as potentially other areas of the property. Quote, I personally viewed on Arian's phone video footage showing residents engaged in nefarious behavior from cameras in other areas of the building, which were not connected to the ones in their individual units, the source said. Quote, at times, Arian had used cameras throughout the property to find me rather than call when he wanted to talk to me in person, which made it obvious that he either had access to the building's common area cameras or was able to establish his own system throughout the property. Furthermore, Arian and Hayter had expressed that specific cameras in the building were theirs and not management's. Walshe, a mother of 3 who lived in Massachusetts but traveled often to D.C., was a regional manager for Tishman Speyer. There does not currently appear to be a link between her disappearance on New Year's Day and the phony agents scandal that rocked D.C. Walshe's husband, Brian, a 46-year-old convicted con man, was arrested Sunday for allegedly lying to police. He reportedly bought $450 worth of cleaning supplies on January 2nd. And then here's a picture of this guy who is Haider Ali. And the caption says, Haider Ali and his scamming partner, Arian Taherzadeh, created a fake covert law enforcement agency. One tenant who requested anonymity to share candid recollections about Ana Walshe called her, quote, a wolf in sheep's clothing and, quote, a very fake person who alternated between a power woman persona and a meek manner while seeking to shut down or placate inquiries about how Haider and Taherzadeh managed to score 5 units in the upscale building for which they allegedly failed to pay $222,000 in rent from late 2020 through spring of 2022. Walshe, quote, lied to people and said things she wanted you to hear in the moment, one resident recalled. At the time of her disappearance, Walshe was on the receiving end of resident demands for the results of an internal security review. Walshe participated in a September 19th meeting with the Tenants Association Board and wouldn't share any information about the status of the review, which the company first disclosed in May in an email to residents. A representative of Tishman Speyer, which manages an array of other properties, including Manhattan's famous 30 Rockefeller Plaza, defended the company Friday, telling the Post that after the September meeting with tenants, no additional questions were ever submitted to building management. The Tenant Association fired back, telling the Post that questions were raised before and during the meeting that were not answered and that additional verbal follow-ups were pursued. Setting up the September meeting, an associate member added, was like pulling teeth. Here's a nice little selfie of this guy, the other defendant in that matter, Arian Taherzadeh, who pleaded guilty to crimes including voyeurism in what appears to be a closet with some cases in the closet that appear to be maybe holding weapons. I'm not sure. The corporate rep also pointed to the Post to a May 5th email to tenants before the voyeurism allegations emerged, attempting to reassure renters after a preliminary internal review. That communication said that the company confirmed that neither the defendant's codes was used or could have been used to enter any other residents' units without directly addressing their claim to have had a universal access code. The email confirmed that the phony agents had, quote, a hard copy building directory they had misappropriated, but that resident information included in the misappropriated directory was limited to name, unit number, phone number, and email address. Last Friday, a spokesman for Tishman Speyer issued another statement to the Post saying, quote, the safety and security of our residents, staff, and guests are our top priority. We have fully cooperated and actively assisted federal authorities throughout their investigation and are grateful for their care and thoroughness. We have communicated regularly with our residents through this process. Although Walsh's disappearance is believed to be linked to her husband and not the fake agents, the tenant said, I think there's a lot of unknowns still, and it's very odd in general. Walshe, whom tenants recall speaking with a thick Eastern European accent, was put in charge of the building at roughly the time of the April raid, and tenants say it's unclear if she was chosen to navigate the scandal or if her role began shortly beforehand. Got the pool camera info. Thank you so much, guys. Love you all. Love you all. Here she is with her 3 boys, faces blurred out. In addition to claiming to be part of the Department of Homeland Security, the Justice Department says that Ali boasted that he had links to Pakistani intelligence and possessed a passport with 2 Iranian visas from 2019 to 2020, as well as 3 older Pakistani visas. For nearly 8 months, Crossing DC management has refused to provide any answers or clarity when it comes to resident safety and security following the FBI raid. Nathaniel Hunt Kelly, president of the Tenants Association, told the Post. Rather, he said they have done everything they can to obfuscate information from residents and the general public. Those living here have felt great concern and are left with more questions than answers. Tishman Speyer, in my experience, will operate within the grayest areas of the law, lie to individuals who seek answers, and provide little to nothing for residents' peace of mind. Court filings that reveal some details of the infiltration operation describe what could be the ploy of a spy thriller movie. Taherzadeh stated that Ali had obtained the electronic access codes and a list of all the tenants in the apartment complex. According to one court filing from authorities, Taherzadeh further stated that Ali was the individual that funded most of their day-to-day operation, but Taherzadeh did not know the source of the funds. Authorities say they seized guns, sniper scopes, a drone, police lights, protective vests, gas masks, breach equipment, and law enforcement insignia and equipment to make fake IDs. Authorities say Taherzadeh and Ali compromised the U.S. Secret Service personnel involved in protective details and with access to the White House complex by lavishing gifts upon them, including rent-free living. One member of the Secret Service was allowed by the men to live rent-free in a penthouse from February 21 to January 22 at a market cost of more than $40,000, while another federal law enforcement officer's rent in the building also was covered, authorities say. In a court filing, authorities say Taherzadeh provided members of the U.S. Secret Service and an employee of DHS with, among other things, rent-free apartments, iPhones, surveillance systems, a drone, a flat-screen television, a case for storing an assault rifle, a generator, and law enforcement paraphernalia. The conspirators also offered these individuals use of what Taherzadeh represented to be official government vehicles and allegedly offered to purchase a $2,000 assault rifle for a U.S. Secret Service agent assigned to the First Lady's protective detail. This was back in 2023. The 4 Secret Service agents were placed on leave pending a review of their actions. Was she a witness in that case? I have so many. The more I dig into this case, the more questions I have about this. So let's go to you guys, because maybe you guys have already dug into this and you know more. Thank you, Wise Gal 81. That's exactly what we just did. Michael Easter versus Jay Stason, your daughter. Wouldn't you love to see that debate? Crazy Cat Lady Turtle Boy said, Higgins, he saw Higgins in the Cape on the 4th. I heard about that. Thank you. Double Trouble Gentleman has been charged with witness intimidation for one of Turtle Boy's witnesses. I heard about that too. Double Trouble Proctor was transferred to South Boston admin role before he was put on leave and then fired. Oh, is that the path, you think, Double Trouble 247? Is that the path? That's where they're putting him, and then they're going to fire him, Bukhenik? Is that what you think? That's interesting. Thank you, Sally Spice, for becoming a new member. One moment. Okay, looks like there's going to be a pool camera for Aiden's hearing. I just don't know if it's going to be on their website or on YouTube, so I'm going to have to do a little digging. I mean, it's become very interesting because of all of the video surveillance of Brian Walshe buying all of the things that he talked about in his Google searches, right? So it'll be interesting to see what Judge Freniere decides on this motion to suppress. What do you think should happen based on everything if you've been watching? Yes, I heard WBZ, but I don't know if it's going to be on their YouTube or on their website. What do you think the judge is going to do? Do you think she's going to suppress the Google searches and the location data and everything that stemmed from the fruit of that poisonous tree? Or do you think she's going to say, they would have found it anyway. No big whoop. Norfolk County. No big whoop. Ain't no thing. Thanks, Sally. Mrs. Bouquet, well, I'll go eat lunch in a few minutes. Thank you for looking out for me. I will. I know those articles are long. But you know, we have the Constitution for a reason. Green-eyed Southern Girl Eye says, I think that she will suppress them if they were found illegally. What do you think? In Norfolk County, you never know what you're going to get, right? You just never know what you're going to get. The agreement between the attorney and Lynn Beland seemed pretty clear to me that they were only allowed to look for communications, not Google searches, not location data. They did it anyway. But we also know they seem to do that all the time anyway. So is it going to take a case like this? Patriotic thinks Judge Freniere will not suppress because the alleged corruption allegedly is systemic all the way to the tippy top. JC says Ana and Brian's former home was set on fire a short time before Brian was arrested. It's such a crazy case. That is crazy. Hi, Mizzy. It's not Bev. The case was taken away from her. She says, knowing Bev, she won't suppress. She knows Morrissey needs this. It was taken away from her, this case. This case was reassigned to Judge Freniere. So it was reassigned in November of 2024, around the same time that Lynn Beland retired to keep her pension. And so it's Judge Freniere. And I don't know a lot about Judge Freniere, but I know that she tried the Christina Ricci case. She took the life of her firefighter husband. For everyone who's just tuning in now to say that Yuri was rehomed, yes, we just covered that. If you want to rewind a little bit, I read the entire article that was in, I don't know, I think it was the Boston Herald. That is true. He's on desk duty now. He's on admin duty. Same path that Proctor took, you know? Christina, she may suppress, but if they have evidence with everything in the house. But here's the problem, Christina, because we went over this search warrant the other day. The search warrant application that Proctor filled out to search the house, the probable cause for that search warrant to search the house was the Google searches that they found in the phone. So you see how this trickles down? See the trickle down of the illegal searches? It's scary. You should be outraged. You should be outraged. Lubin Dubin, without them convicting on the constitutional foundation, it will be appealed and then overturned. They can't build a case on stilts and expect it to stand up to the storm. Right. New Hampshire woman says maybe Brian Walshe not going to trial over this will be the DA's hitting rock bottom. I'm dying to know what's in the motion to dismiss. It's been impounded. It was impounded quickly. And all the stuff that we read together is unimpounded. The motions to suppress. So we've got all of that information. There was no reason to impound that stuff again. So what is it in the motion to dismiss that has been so impounded? Remember, the motion to dismiss on the Karen Reed case, portions of it were redacted, but we did get to see most of it. Here, the entire thing has been impounded. So what else did maybe Larry Tipton uncover? Right? Annie Ruler says, like Alec Baldwin, Walsh's family has enough money to make this go away, in my opinion. Well, Brian Walshe has a public defender. So he doesn't have any more money. He's been ordered to pay restitution in the fake Warhol painting scandal. And he's got a public defender. And I don't think Alec Baldwin's dismissal had anything to do with him having a lot of money. It had to do with the egregious Brady violations in that case. And the judge just threw it out. And then people say that the only reason Karen Reed got off is because she had people donating money to her defense, which I disagree with also. But it is really scary. I didn't know Julie Miller has a new Vanity Fair article. It's behind a paywall. Leah says the acronym, the BAT, leave of absence, stands for Behavior Assessment Team Leave of Absence. Interesting. That is with regard to Kelly Depp. Yes, his public defender, Larry Tipton, was Penny McGee's defender on her bench trial with Judge Cannone. You are correct. He's good. Larry Tipton is good. Deneen, why did she take out that large life insurance policy? I don't know. A lot of people have she was the breadwinner in the family. He couldn't work, because he had an ankle monitor on. There was also some stories that came out about him, like destroying his father's will, and then there was a lot of litigation over that. Talking about evidence from the lawsuit of the landlord. I don't remember what your part was. I can't help you. Photographs. Brian Walshe, yeah, he's being held without bail. He's still there. He's still there. We're coming back for a hearing on July 24th on the motion to dismiss, and the trial is scheduled to start on April 20th. Yeah, behavior assessment team must have assessed Devers' false memories of being true and put her on leave. Or they're like, you have false memories? Maybe you shouldn't be on patrol. If you have false memories, maybe you should not be out there dealing with the public and investigating things if you have false memory issues. Thank you, Susan C., for gifting another 5 memberships. You're amazing. None of your business says, how wild would it be if she was still alive? I know. Wild. Because a lot of people said it sounded like a Gone Girl situation. But now that we know, I mean, we already knew this. I just held it from you. They've got him on video at all of these places buying all of these things. And they found stuff in the dumpsters where he is on video dumping things in the dumpsters. And his location data puts him there, allegedly. It's a problem. They just think it's going to blow over, says Jay Cornish. I know. But no body, right? But there was a piece of a bone fragment found on that hacksaw that he's on video buying from one of the Home Depot or Lowe's places. I don't know if they have confirmatory DNA on that bone fragment. But, I watched the TV show You. Did you watch the TV show You? Anyone? Anyone watch You? Joe Goldberg cut off his own toe and then set the house on fire and ran away so that they would think that the piece of his toe that was found, that he was dead. Right? Yeah, and then we didn't even cover Koberger pleading guilty. That was wild. Why would a guy, I'm just curious, why would a guy who viciously murdered 4 college students be afraid of the death penalty? That's what makes no sense to me. So I don't know. Some of the families aren't happy about it, but who's to say if it's better for the families in the long run because he had to waive right to appeal? There would never be an appeals. It would just kind of be over now. Closure. I don't know. It's not for me to say. Not for me to say. Are we there yet? It says there's no way Boston PD can ever use or let Dever act as a law enforcement officer, so they have to get her out somehow. She will taint every case she would be involved in. Her only real option was to be truthful. Yeah, we should call them the taint team. Proctor, Bukhenik, Fanning, Tully. Tully's got his hands in everything, including so many things in the Aiden Carney case. And if you're not familiar with the Aiden Carney case, the playlist is linked in, well, it's on my channel, but also the video that we're going to jump to after this. It's linked there. And Tully's all over Aiden Carney's case. So what happened was when they went to prosecute Aiden Carney for these alleged witness intimidation charges that are felonies, by the way, he's facing over 100 years in jail. I know it's that too. We're going to go over there in a few minutes. Tully. So when they decided to prosecute him for all of these felony witness intimidation charges against people like Bukhenik, Proctor, the McCabe's, the Alberts, they had to hire an outside special prosecutor because, they had a conflict within the DA's office because the Karen Reed case was going on. So they hire a guy named Ken Mello. Ken Mello was in cahoots with, because they've got proof of this, he was in a text message chain with Tully, Ken Mello, Lindsay Gattani, and Kate Peter Mafia Masshole. They may or may not have been trying to set him up to violate his bail conditions to throw him in jail. And they actually did throw him in jail for 60 days, but Tully's all over that case too. And then Ken Mello went MIA. He's sick. So they got a retired judge by the name of Robert Cosgrove to represent the Commonwealth against Aiden Carney. And he calls Colin Albert. We've watched a lot of those hearings. And so Tully is involved in everything, as is maybe Laura McLaughlin. And the reason that I'm bringing back Laura McLaughlin is because Alan Jackson did the other day in his Turtle Boy interview. Mark Betterow and I have said many, many times on this channel, we were of the opinion there should have been an evidentiary hearing on the Karen Reed motion to dismiss. Because where did all that missing Sally Port video come from? Lally should have been forced to get up on the stand and talk about it. And Laura McLaughlin. She's involved in the Brian Walshe case too. She's behind the scenes a lot, but she's behind the scenes a lot. Because that Sally Port video that was kept from the defense until the second trial, according to the judge in her decision on that motion to dismiss, which I was trending on Twitter that day because I cursed so much and I usually don't curse. When I was reading that decision on Karen Reed's motion to dismiss, Michael Proctor hid the video. I mean, according to who? According to who? Did Alan Mullally and Laura McLaughlin ever see it? Did they know where it was? That needed an evidentiary hearing and it didn't get one. And so I have a lot of questions about that. But I think we're going to hear a lot more about that because I think there might be some, 1983 cases coming, at least one. Violation of civil rights for, inverted video, missing Sally Port video, exculpatory evidence that should have been turned over that wasn't. Who knew about it? And when did they know about it? And did they intentionally withhold it in the Karen Reed case? Or was it an accident? What is it? Oops. Kind of like, oops, we went outside the scope of the warrant in the Brian Walshe case, but no big deal because look at everything that we found. I mean, clearly he's guilty. Yes. Kate, Laura's also the one, and I remember this hearing very well. We watched it together. She's also the one who told Judge Cannone there isn't any exculpatory evidence in the 3,074 pages that the feds dumped on both sides during the Karen Reed trial, or before the first trial. She said, there's nothing exculpatory in there. It's everything we already have. Nobody else had time to read it, but she did. Cosgrove is such a slow speaker, it'll be hard to stay awake. So there's a lot of stuff to talk about with Turtle Boy, but we're going to discuss that all at 2:00 because that's when his hearing is. What about the video from the airport? What case are we talking about? We usually have 20 side conversations going on. And the damn x-rays? Yeah, where were the x-rays? Did they withhold the x-rays too? I mean, they told Judson Walshe there were no x-rays of John O'Keefe's arm. And then they just abandoned. They jumped shit on their ship on their rebuttal case. Cause whoever's painful to listen to in real time. I know. I like to speed him up and then he sounds normal. What else was withheld from the defense in the Karen Reed case? It's going to be interesting. BMAC says, would you be interested in interviewing Michael Easter? Ah, thanks, BMAC. I mean, I would if I feel like he's been on another channel like a million times. Thanks, Susan, for gifting another 5 memberships. Another 5 memberships, really? Yeah, I think also I have somebody in mind that I would like to talk about the Brian Walshe case with. I'm going to reach out to. I think we all just needed a breather between Karen Reed's case and everything else. So tell me what other trials you want to watch. I'm not a big fan of the Donna Adelson thing. I mean, there are other people that have been covering that for years. Doesn't really tickle my fancy. I like to cover cases that I'm passionate about. So you tell me here and in the comments if you there's something that's coming up like soon that you want to cover. Selenites, nobody wants a murderer to get off. That's why we were free Karen Reed. Brian Walshe is most likely guilty, but might get a pass because yet again, the entitled MSP think the law don't apply to them. Yep. So true. Morphew. Yes, I got to get back on Morphew. Thank you. You know, I have ties to Colorado and I love Colorado. Gilgo, we're going to do that. We're doing Long Island serial killer for sure. Suzanne Simpson. Yes, somebody sent me an extensive email on that a while ago. Is that coming up? I have Clancy. I've got the documents. We can start on that. I don't know. I haven't covered that case at all. The Raul Valley. I'm not sure how to pronounce his last name. The jury's deliberating right now. No, that is the, I don't know what they were calling that, the Preppy trial case or something. I don't know. Uncivil says they took away my Brian Kohberger trial coverage. I'm the biggest victim of all. There's so many cases to cover. There's so many cases to cover. Thank you, Tina. I mean, if Michael Easter, if I can figure out how to find him. No update on Lindsay Clancy, but it is coming up and I have documents. Yes, Mickey Steins. There was some new body cam footage that came out on that. Yeah, let's do that. That's the Kentucky sheriff. I have a playlist on that. And what was going on in the chambers of that judge? Woo! There was some stuff going on there. There's civil litigation about it. I have the documents, the papers. Mickey Steins is that Kentucky sheriff that went in and killed the judge, like on camera. Georgia says, I've been thinking for a while now. I think John O'Keefe might have been an FBI informant over the corruption in NF. Maybe that's why we have many players happened in the past. So yeah, no, I can't. Stephen Stearns is repulsive to me. I can't. Sorry, Ocean City Gold. You're going to have to go somewhere else for your trial coverage on that or even anything about that because it repulses me so much. I cannot. Even though it's going to be popular. That's not how I just can't. All right. We're going to come back at 1:45. When I hit end on this, it's going to teleport you over to the 2 p.m. stream. So let's go on over there so we can free Turtle Boy in a half an hour. Let's all get something to eat, get a drink, get a snacks, do all the things that you need to do. Please smash the like button on your way out and then smash the like button on your way in to the new stream so we can go support Turtle Boy. Okay. Thank you to the moderators for keeping it classy today. And I love you with all of my heart. And if I don't see you soon, I'm going to die. And I will see you soon in 30 minutes. Go grab your snacks, grab your drinks. I'm going to teleport you. Safe travels, my friends. In 3, 2, 1. You're going over to the new one. Ready, set, buckle up, buttercups.